The last story in this video genuinely stuck with me, but every story before it deserves to be here. Let's get into the first one. And hey, subscribe for more videos. Dad shut himself inside his bunker at the start of the pandemic. 3 months ago, we lost contact with him. Dad shut himself inside his bunker at the beginning of 2020. He said the world was about to end, and when we didn't believe him, he told us to wake up. It was raining that day. I remember focusing on the water hitting the window panes while my sister tried to change Dad's mind. I knew it was no use. He was too stubborn to listen to anyone except maybe Donald Trump, who had just declared that COVID-19 had pushed the world into a pandemic. Dad wanted us to join him, and when we told him no, he called us brainwashed. He purchased the land before I was born, only because of the dilapidated military facility that came with it. It was abandoned sometime in the 60s, I think. My sister was there from the beginning, even before Dad's obsession pushed Mom away. It's hard for me to imagine what he was like back then. Mom says he was a gentleman, but they married young, and a person can change a lot during those years, and so did Dad. All I remember from him during childhood are the weekends at the bunker, constantly renovating it and stockpiling it with everything he would need to survive down there. We couldn't stop him. He wasn't the best dad, not even a good one, but it was sad to see him go all the same. He was excited, even though he thought that civilization was about to collapse. I guess that happens when you've spent your entire adult life preparing. We had to set up an old radio to keep in touch with him. He didn't trust mobile phones. We didn't hear from him often, just once a month, sometimes less. The last time he radioed in, he said he had found a hidden door. He was going to see where it went. That was 3 months ago. "You think he's okay?" my sister said. He wasn't in great health, I told him. We sat in the car on our way to check up on him, driving through the heat wave. His radio might have broken down, I said. Let's not assume the worst. But I felt worried too. There was something strange about that hidden door, and his tone when he mentioned it. It didn't sit right with me. But maybe it was just the heat and the endless desert around us that played tricks on my mind. I couldn't really tell. It was dark when we arrived. Dad's truck stood where he had left it, beneath some tarp that blew in the chilly, sand-carrying wind. We turned on our flashlights and walked to the cliff above the bunker. The steel door was made to withstand a nuclear blast. Luckily, I owned the only spare key in existence. Before I used it, I banged on the door as hard as I could and yelled for Dad. I worried he would mistake us for intruders and shoot us. If he was confused and if it was dark, it was a real possibility. I banged again and yelled at the top of my lungs. "Dad, are you there? It's me, Josh. Eveline is here as well." "I don't think he can hear you," Eveline said. I nodded. "Dad, I'm going to open the door now." I was 17 the last time I was here. Back then it was the Muslims that were going to end civilization as we knew it. Before that, it was the Russians. Now it was China. There was always something threatening his beloved freedom, and yet he was never truly free. My sister put her hand on my wrist just as I was about to unlock the door. "You know," she said, "maybe we should just call the authorities after all and—" "No," I said, "he'll fight them." I unlocked the heavy door. A rancid smell escaped the darkness inside. It was the odor of death. I recognized it from when Dad tried, and ultimately failed, to learn how to hunt and let a reindeer carcass rot on the property for weeks. My sister had already stopped visiting him by then. I didn't tell her what the smell reminded me of. She covered her nose with her shirt. We descended the spiral stairs. It creaked for each step we took, almost as if it was about to fall apart. I tried the light switch at the bottom. The click echoed throughout the long corridor leading to the living area. Nothing happened. I realized that the batteries, which he charged by the use of an old exercise bike, were dead. That meant he was most likely dead as well. The generator could be broken, I said, but maybe you should wait back here, just in case, you know. I pointed my flashlight in front of me. The light was too weak to reach the end of the corridor. On the way here, I had felt ready. I felt sad, the kind of empty sadness you feel after the death of a parent that was never any good, but I didn't feel worried. Now, on the other hand, while staring into the dark corridor that I used to run through as a kid, I was afraid. The fear reminded me of how my childhood night terrors used to start. They always crept up on me in the darkness, grew with the grotesque shadows on my bedroom ceiling. "I'm not letting you go in there alone," Eveline said. We stay together. We walked into the darkness. The foul smell intensified for every step we took, and so did my heartbeat. I was glad my sister didn't stay behind. The bunker seemed so much smaller than I remembered it, much more cramped. The asymmetry between my memories and reality made everything feel off somehow, just as if the bunker was merely a model of the real thing, but it wasn't. I had just grown up. The Confederate flag greeted us at the end of the corridor. It hung on the concrete wall. It looked pale in the hot spot of the flashlight, almost like a phantom, and of course, in many ways it was, a ghost from a time long ago, or perhaps a corpse brought back to life, an abomination. It reminded me of Dad more than anything else. You have to be seriously confused to praise freedom as much as Dad and hang that symbol of lesser freedom in the world on your wall, Eveline said. He wanted to protect his freedom so much that he built a prison for himself. I removed the light from the flag, leaving only darkness. You bet he was confused. We entered the main chamber. It was overfilled with litter and clutter. Empty cans, both the food and beer kinds, lay scattered across the sticky floor. We had to take large steps not to step on any of the trash. "That's weird." Eveline pointed her flashlight at the small dining table. "Look." My hair stood up on my neck before I even realized what she meant. The table was set for 3 people. I didn't say anything for a moment, trying to process what I was seeing, and just when I was about to speak, my sister interrupted me. "Who the fuck was here with him?" "We don't know," I began. "I mean, he might have left the old plates on the table and..." A sound of something falling to the ground came from one of the other rooms further into the bunker. I pointed my light in its direction but couldn't see what made it. "Dad!" I yelled. "It's me, Josh. You there?" No response. "I'm afraid," Eveline whispered. "Something isn't right." I only vaguely heard what she said. My focus was on something else, something on the wall on the other end of the room. "That's not supposed to be there." I slowly walked toward it. That must have been what he talked about over the radio. Dad had hacked away a layer of concrete, for whatever reason, and uncovered a rusty metal door behind it. It stood ajar. A lukewarm, musty breeze came out of it. My sister walked up to me as I carefully pried the door open with the back of my flashlight. I felt my heart in my throat. I could hear my sister begging for us to leave, almost in tears. But I needed to know what was behind that door. It was imperative to understand what had happened here. I needed to know. I needed closure. "What in heaven's name?" Eveline looked over my shoulder. "Why is this here?" Behind the door was a room about the size of a broom cupboard. It was unremarkable except for a circular hole in the middle of the floor. I shone my light into it, but I couldn't see the bottom. Just as I thought it was big enough for a person, my sister said, "Do you think he fell?" Drops of sweat from my forehead fell down the pit. I felt dizzy and stepped back, afraid I would fall inside. My sister picked up a can filled with some rotten beans and threw it down the hole. It clattered against the walls as it bounced from one side to another. The sound faded away until we couldn't hear it anymore. There was no indication it touched down at the bottom. I stretched out my hand and held it above the opening. "It's warm," I said. "The air, I mean." "Maybe he fell." Eveline stepped back, almost as if she were convinced. "Can we please get out of here?" She reached for my arm. "We can return with the police, please, Josh." "It wasn't dark when Dad found this," I said. "He would have seen the hole. Josh, please. Just give me a moment to think." I walked toward the hallway that led to the other rooms, desperately hoping to find him. For some reason, it was important for me to see him, to be able to leave without wondering. I needed to know that he was truly dead. I just want to... I stopped myself after I accidentally pointed the flashlight on the floor in the middle of the hallway, revealing a pair of feet. "I think I found him." I ran up to the body. "Wait!" Eveline yelled and reluctantly followed me to avoid being left alone. It wasn't Dad. I screamed upon the realization. My mind couldn't comprehend what I had just seen. I spun around and tried to run away, completely acting on instinct, and crashed into my sister. She grabbed me, kept me still, and as she looked behind me, down at the dead body on the floor, she began to cry, while her hands trembled uncontrollably against my shoulders. "Oh my God," she said. How is it possible? It's you." "Let's get a fuck out of here," I said. "Move." There was nothing that could explain this, and the more my mind tried to moving in an endless loop doing so, the dread grew inside me. I only got a glimpse of the body before I panicked, but my sister was right. The half-rotten face was the same as mine, with a bullet hole in the middle of the forehead. We stumbled our way through the living area, tipping over chairs and kicking cans all over the place, and just as we were about to get out of the mess, a familiar voice echoed through the hallway we had just escaped. "Josh!" It was Dad. We both stopped in our tracks. "Is that you? Josh?" "Dad?" I yelled back. "What the fuck is going on here?" "Don't worry." It sounded like he was at the other end of the bunker, possibly inside the storeroom. "I killed the son of a bitch, put a bullet right between his eyes." "Come out from there," I yelled. "We have to leave. It's not safe here." Silence. "Something is wrong," Eveline said. "I don't think—" "Dad," I yelled. "Come out." "I can't move," Dad said. "I'm stuck under a shelf. I'll need your help, son." I turned to my sister. "Go back up. I'll get that old bastard out of there. We'll be right behind you, okay?" "Think, Josh," Eveline begged. "You think he's been stuck under a shelf for—" I should have listened, but even after what we had just seen, I just couldn't bring myself to even consider something as outlandish as what my sister was suggesting. It was simply too far-fetched, too unbelievable to penetrate all my layers of presumptions about reality. It couldn't be. It just couldn't. Hence, I ran back to the hallway, yelling for my sister to get back up to the surface and wait for us there. "I'm coming, Dad." I only slowed down to carefully step over the corpse that bore my face. Perhaps, I thought, it was just a coincidence. A burglar that just happened to look like me. After all, the face had begun to rot. It wasn't obviously me. I felt stupid, and I almost convinced myself that it was just my childhood fear of the dark coming back to life down here. And then, just as I was about to walk past the small composting toilet that stood inside a small room at the end of the hallway, I stopped. Shivers spread across my entire body, paralyzing me. Dad sat on the toilet. His gun still hung from his trigger finger, and his brain was splattered across the wall behind him. He had his journal in his lap, covered in blood. "Josh!" Dad yelled from the darkness. "Help me!" I was frozen in place, both by fear and confusion, unable to make any decisions. "Come on, Josh!" Dad kept yelling. "I need your help, son!" My mind was racing. There was no way of knowing who was who. When I heard Dad's voice yelling for help while watching his dead body, nothing but absolute terror reverberated inside me. I slowly reached for the journal in Dad's lap and grabbed it, hoping it would shed some light on the situation. I was just about to open it when my sister screamed. I ran back, this time jumping over my doppelganger's body, and found her looking at something at the corner of the main chamber. "I told you to," I said, but changed my mind. "Are you okay? What happened?" She cried. "It's me." Crawled up in the corner was her naked dead body. Her head had been twisted in such a way that the neck had been broken. "There's something seriously wicked going on here," I said. "Dad shot himself in the head a long time ago by the looks of it, and yet he keeps yelling for help. Let's get back to the car now." We drove away from the bunker as fast as we could, leaving whatever was still alive down there yelling for help. My sister insisted on staying at my place for a few days. I didn't mind having her around. We shared an experience no one else could relate to, and we needed each other to overcome the trauma. It took a day for me to build up the courage to open Dad's journal. It began with his usual deranged conspiracy theories. I flipped past them. At the end, he had only made short notes. Found a hidden door. Deep pit. Possible the remains of some old black project. Eveline and Josh woke me up. A surprise visit. Didn't hear them enter. Strange. Had dinner with them. Something seems off. It isn't them. They tried to make me illegible. God help me, it isn't them. I shot the son of a bitch right between the eyes, hiding in the bathroom now. This will probably be my last entry. God forgive me. Chills went down my spine as I read the last entry on the blood-drenched page. I never got the other one. She's still out there somewhere. I only got one bullet left. I won't allow her to do that abhorrent thing to me. Forgive me. My sister has been cooking for hours. She just called for me from the kitchen. Josh, come here, I want to show you something. I just graduated from medical school, and my new hospital has some very strange rules. You probably think that all doctors are filthy rich, because I sure as hell did in the beginning. 8 years and a fistful of premature gray hairs later, I'm just a few $100,000 poorer than broke. That would matter if I had a family to provide for, but the long hours in med school have led to an end of my last relationship and a countdown on the shelf life of my ovaries. I was in a take what I can get and be grateful situation. So when St. Francis Hospital in Charleston, West Virginia offered me a position, I packed my sad life into 3 bags and sought opportunity in the hills of Appalachia. 19 of us started in July, and 13 have since dropped out. I like to think of myself as the rat that wouldn't drown. Some people broke inside after watching children die because they weren't good enough doctors quite yet. Everyone has to be a rookie at some point. It's doubly hard when you have to inform the dead child's parents, who then beg you to tell them different news or scream that they want to die and just please kill them with whatever drug takes away the pain. But most of my incoming class couldn't handle the chief of medicine. Dr. Vivian Scritt is, without a doubt, the biggest bitch I've ever met. Now I know why. 19 of you start today, and we've got a pool going with bets on how long each of you will last, she told us on day 1. Don't feel any pressure, folks. I've talked with each of you in private, and my expectations are very low. She peered condescendingly over her thin spectacles, snorted, then turned around to walk away. You should know when to follow me and when to stay away, because I'm not going to waste time explaining what you should figure out on your own. We gawked at one another, all feeling weak and small, then scampered after her. I was last in line and felt out of place taking even that much. You should have the list of expectations for St. Francis, Dr. Scritt explained as she walked on, not bothering to look at us as she talked. I printed 18 sets of rules so that you would have to challenge one another for them, knowing that one of you would be left behind. An icy cold settled in the pit of my stomach as I saw everyone look down at a list of rules that only I did not have. If you cannot follow these rules, there will be no place for you in this hospital. It most likely means that you are unsuited to be a doctor and should consider a profession that demands a weaker mental aptitude. At that, she turned around to face us all. And if you think that I'm the type to give second chances after a mistake, you're woefully underprepared for the world of medicine. She stopped and looked at each of us in turn, apparently expecting a response that no one dared to offer. Well, she shot out in exasperation, why are you standing here? People are dying. Get to work. No one wanted to show me their list of rules, so I had to wait until one of my classmates died. It took nearly a week. I was working at 3 a.m. because I had only been on the clock for 10 hours. I was rushing into another room so that a patient wouldn't know I was Googling his symptoms. Doctors do this far more than you realize. When I saw Myron by himself in an OR, I stopped immediately. Myron? I squeaked. What the hell is that? His arms were working furiously, but his back was turned toward me, so I couldn't see what he was doing. Something felt wrong. Myron was the pick of our litter. He'd been top 10 in his class at Johns Hopkins, and he would remind us of that fact in exchange for answering the questions that we were too terrified to ask Dr. Scrit. Slowly I approached Myron, not wanted to startle him. "We're really busy right now. Is there something you need help with?" He showed no outward signs that he had heard me. Instead, he kept pumping away furiously at the task at hand. When I was 5 steps from him, I could see drops of blood flying over his shoulder, which made no sense, since he had been alone in the room. "Myron?" I whispered, barely loudly enough to hear my own words. I slowly crept around his left side, finally bringing the scene into full view. Myron's abdomen was split from sternum to pelvis. His esophagus spilled out, and his stomach sat on the table. A nest of quivering small intestine led from the bottom of his stomach back into his shredded torso. Myron showed no outward signs of pain. He was too busy working. He clutched his own stomach tightly in his left hand, the folds squirting through his fingers like unbaked bread. His right hand was working furiously with a scalpel, sawing his organ into ribbons. Rivers of sweat poured down his forehead with the intensity of the effort. I tried to scream, but it only came out as a moan. That was enough to get Myron to notice me. Slowly, he raised his head. Slowly, he smiled. It was not a happy smile. With eye contact locked on me, he licked his lips, angrily stabbed a piece of his stomach and lifted it to his mouth. He bit, he chewed, then he lunged, but most people don't know how to move with their innards splayed out for all the world to see, and this was his downfall. Myron's tattered guts caught on the corner of the table, and he fell to the floor. Finally, he screamed. I had learned very early in my medical career that compartmentalization is indispensable. That instinct took over my brain in the moment, and I acted clinically. Myron was still grasping his scalpel with his right hand. I kicked it hard, and it flew out of his hands. He stared at me and screeched. With his entrails still wrapped around the table, I figured my best option was retreat. I moved to the back of the room as a doctor and a janitor burst in, and in possibly the most shocking moment of the night, I realized that they were not shocked. Myron was anesthetized, subdued, and extracted within a minute of their arrival. For a moment, I was alone with a pool of blood and diced stomach lining, and something else. A sheet of paper lay on the floor, its corner just touching the edge of the creeping blood. Myron had dropped his list of rules. The practical part of my brain continued to drive me. I snatched the paper from the ground, then quickly exited the room, taking care to avoid the puddle. I didn't want to leave any bloody footprints in my wake. I knew that I had to read the list as soon as I was able to find 30 uninterrupted seconds to myself. 3 hours later, I had my opportunity and ducked into a janitor's closet. With a shaking, exhausted hand, I pulled the chain on a bare bulb, tried to ignore the noxious smell of leaking ammonia, and read. St. Francis Hospital Rules, Guidelines for New Doctors 1. Never, under any circumstances, share your copy of the rules with anyone else. 2. If any other doctor displays erratic behavior, leave the area immediately. Do not make eye contact. 3. If any other doctor is approached or detained by someone in a janitor's uniform, do not interfere. Never ask about that former doctor again. 4. Never touch any seemingly abandoned Reese's peanut butter cups. Those are Dr. Scrit's favorite candy. 5. Any child that dies in St. Francis Hospital must be cremated within 120 minutes of official time of death. If you suspect this rule has been broken, alert Dr. Scrit and the hospital will be evacuated. 6. There is no children's burn unit at St. Francis Hospital. If you find yourself there, continue walking until you return to familiar territory. This usually requires traveling in a straight line down the central hallway for 47 minutes. You will not reach a wall during that interval. 7. This rule is on a need-to-know basis. 8. A small quantity of sulfuric acid is kept in every room. This is only intended for use on patients with severed spinal cords. If they attack, a hypodermic injection of H2SO4 into the cranium is the only way to subdue the subject. 9. The morgue must house at least 13 cadavers at all times. 10. If find yourself on the hospital roof with no memory of how you got there, you have only 2 choices. Either wait for an extraction team to find you, or jump 4 stories to the sidewalk on Court Street. 11. If you see room 1913, do not look directly at the numbers. Do not open the door. This is, by far, the most important rule. My heart stopped when the door opened. Dr. Scrit was staring at me. What little emotion shined through her exterior seemed to be surprise. We both stood, frozen, for 5 seconds of agonized silence. "Dr. Aphalis?" she drawled gravely. "I'm shocked." She stared down at the bloodstained list of rules in my hand. I reached for words, any words, because literally any response would make me look less guilty than I did in that moment, staring up at my boss's boss's boss and saying literally nothing in my defense as she weighed my soul with her eyes. And I said nothing. "You took a list that wasn't yours and were nowhere to be found after your coworker experienced such an unnatural incident." Dr. Scrit huffed through her nose. "It seems that you're willing to do the unthinkable in the name of getting what you need, and Myron couldn't even follow the most important rule." She clenched her teeth. "I had a 4-year streak of predicting which incoming doctors will break the soonest. This will ruin my chances in the office pool." The ghost of a smile graced her lips before she turned to leave. "Get to work, doctor. You've got 3 hours left on your shift, and those symptoms aren't going to Google themselves." I didn't realize that I'd been holding my breath until I heard my own gasp for air. Shaking, I slowly emerged from the janitor's closet. I quickly stuffed the list of rules back into my pocket, reflecting on the fact that I had just achieved what might be considered an actual win. Perhaps, just maybe, I would keep my head above water at St. Francis after all. I turned to head down the hall when I stopped in my tracks. Everything was unfamiliar. What the hell had happened? I glanced all around. The design of the hallway was familiar, but everything was off. I could hear people talking in the rooms, but the immediate vicinity was devoid of all people but myself. Nothing made sense. Then I looked up, and I'll be honest, I peed just a little when I read the sign. "My daughter has a disturbing and deadly talent." 6 words. So innocent, and yet they had ruined everything. "Daddy, look what I can do." I had turned, smiling, to see my daughter's newest magic trick. I stopped smiling when I saw it. My heart stopped, my blood ran cold, a disturbing reminder of things past. I grabbed her by the shoulders, a little too hard, made her promise to never tell another soul about what she could do. I made her swear so many times. She was crying by the end. Her face was ugly and contorted, her nose dripping snot, but she promised. I always knew that would not be the end of it. I knew what I had to do. Slip some sleeping pills into her drink and cover her face with a pillow, like I had done with her mom. But I could not bring myself to do it. I loved her far too much, even more than I had loved my wife. And as she grew older, looking more like her mother every day, I knew it was only a matter of time. I still remember the night my wife told me, the night of our 5th anniversary. She had bought my favorite scotch, cooked us both some thick steaks, and sat me down at the dining room table. Our baby son was sleeping soundly in his room. "I have something important to tell you," she said. Her tone sent chills trickling down my spine. "I'm pregnant," she said flatly. My breath caught in my throat. I smiled. She did not. "I don't understand," I said breathlessly. "Isn't this good news?" My wife's lips pursed into a thin white line. "It's a girl," she said. "I can feel it." I waited for her to explain why she was upset, but instead, She started talking nonsense. The girls in my family, she trailed off. We all have a special ability. I shook my head. Okay, I said, my mind a question mark. And what is that? My wife frowned. It's better if I show you. She lifted the steak knife from beside her plate. Before I could stop her, she violently slashed open her wrist. I sent my chair clattering to the floor behind me as I lunged for my wife. I grabbed her arm so hard, but what I saw did not make any sense. Her arm was slashed down to the bone, but the blood did not flow out. It won't come out unless I let it, said my wife. It was then the blood began to flow, down her arm, then up into a shape. It detached and rose up, forming itself into a face, floating in midair. My wife's face, then spiraling back down like a funnel into her open arm. The flesh knitted itself back together. That night, my dinner went untouched. What happened next was all my fault, but in my defense, I felt my trust had been betrayed. I did not know where to turn. Weak and weary, I turned to the arms of another woman. Of course, these things always come out. When I came home that day, my wife was sitting in one of the wooden dining room chairs. She had moved it to the middle of the living room so that she was facing the door when I came in. Our baby daughter was snoring gently in her room. I could hear our son as he watched cartoons in his own. As I looked into my wife's eyes, I knew that she already knew. She stood up. My blood ran cold. Then I realized that it wasn't just a chill. My blood was actually getting colder. My wife walked slowly towards me. I can freeze you from the inside, she said. Burst all the blood vessels in your body. I can boil you alive. I can make you bleed from your eyes, your ears, and every pore. And next time, I will. My heart stopped, and I collapsed unconscious to the floor. By the time that I awoke, my wife had already found my lover and done the last one she had threatened me with to her. After that, we always fought, and my wife began to lose it. My mother died from a cerebral hemorrhage. My sister died from a stomach bleed. She never admitted it, but I knew that it was her. I had no choice. I had to kill her. And now, I wondered if I should have killed my daughter too. My heart throbbed with guilt as I thought back to the first time she had shown me her magic trick all those many years ago. I knew I could have stopped this all with a pillow and some pills, just as I had done with my wife. She said it was an accident, and maybe it was, but as I stared down at the body of my son, covered in blood that had exploded from every pore, I didn't really care. Letter from the girl who watched you grow up. Hi. The first time I saw you, I was surprised I could see you. You had a small turtle in your hands. You kept calling it Michelangelo, which I assumed was a nod to the Ninja Turtles. You tossed your long brown hair behind your back and knelt down to place the turtle on the ground. You were excited to see it wobbling on the grass. It reminded me of my cat and how I used to play with him when I was your age. I witnessed your entire childhood from my small window. Your first ride on a bicycle, your first day of school, your first real friend Brenda, your first day of middle school and the cute uniform you got to wear. The time you won the science fair and you brought home a trophy shaped like a cell. You were such a happy girl. I saw you grow older, your body changing. You grew taller, your body slimmer, your face as beautiful as ever. I witnessed as others started to notice you in a different way. The stares from the jealous girls, the googly eyes from the young boys. As all this happened before my eyes, I noticed myself changing too. I got older, I got weaker, I got disillusioned, bruised. I lost my will to escape my painful life. All I had was this window to your life to keep me going. I lived my days through yours. Watching you was enough entertainment for me. You couldn't know the different ways you saved me from bad thoughts, bad days, and all the pain I had been suffering from. I saw the day that handsome young man came to pick you up in a red convertible. Your mother wasn't happy about it, but she knew she had no choice. You had to start spreading your wings at some point. You left in a gorgeous floral dress that matched the summer's flowers. You came back late that night. You had a stuffed bear and some leftover cotton candy. I imagined you had gone to the fair. I imagined all the rides you must have gone on. All the fun that must have been for you. I was so happy that you had enjoyed your first date. And then came the magical kiss. He leaned in, blushing, and kissed you. Your cheeks were so red that I instantly knew I had witnessed your first kiss. I closed my eyes, imagining what that must have felt like. For 1 second, I imagined it had been me wearing that dress, smiling so big, with butterflies in my belly and a kiss on my lips. But I was happy for you. I wanted to thank you for allowing me to live again, for allowing me to dream again. I wanted to thank you, but just couldn't bring myself to you. I couldn't go talk to you. I didn't know how. If only you knew about my window. And then, one day, I heard him talking about you, the man I live with. He noticed you. I heard him complaining about how pretty girls like you shouldn't show off their legs like that. The moment he mentioned your legs, I knew it was over. I knew you would become his next trophy. I had to keep you away from him. This was my chance to thank you. I couldn't let you turn into me. I had been lucky. I don't know why he liked me this much. Most other girls came and went, never to return, and yet amidst all the years, he always kept me down here. I think it's because he saw that I still had a light in me. Because I had you, all the other girls died long before he killed them. I could tell that they were already dead in their eyes long before he viciously murdered them in front of me, showing off his skill. But not me. You kept me going. I had my little window, a little crack high up on the wall of this basement I call home. He didn't like that he couldn't break me down. He didn't know about the little crack, so he kept me to see how long I could stay like this. It is a sick game that I've been winning, thanks to you. But then, he noticed you, and I knew. I knew what fate awaited you if he laid his monstrous hands on you. Whatever strength I have left, I've collected it and prepared myself to finally do something about it. I want to thank you, because if you're reading this letter, it means I did it. I gathered my courage, packed it neatly into action, and went through with my plan to escape once and for all. I will make him believe I've died. I don't know if it'll work, but if it does, he will reach to pick me up. I'll immediately kick him as hard as I can where it'll hurt the most, as hard as I can. I will then steal his keys and run as fast as I can and drop this letter off in your mailbox. I have a feeling he will chase me and get a hold of me eventually because I am weak. I'm very weak, battered. There is barely a human left in this body of mine. But if that is the case, I've been prepared to leave this world for a long time. I doubt anyone will hear or see me. This street is so desolate. You're the only life here, it seems sometimes. But so long as you get this letter, I know that I did my part and that you'll be safe. Monsters are real. This one is named Ryan Morehouse. He is your front door neighbor. I have been kept captive in his basement for a very long time. I've lost track of the years, but I believe I must be in my late 20s by now. I was 15 when he first brought me here. My parents must have looked for me. Please don't tell them about me. I don't want them to know about the tortures he put me through. I don't want them to see me broken down this way. I just want you to report him to the police. His evil nature and depraved mind can only be stopped if he is caught behind bars. They will find bodies dangling in the walls of the basement. I've learned to live with the smell by now, but they will notice it the second they step down here. There are a lot of young girls in the walls of my room down here. Tell them to treat them delicately. They were good girls. They've been my companions, my friends. Most of all, I want to thank you. You're the only thing that kept me going. You were my light, and now I'm escaping thanks to you. Escaping this awful room, escaping this awful life, even if it means I finally get to die. With love, the girl who watched you grow up. We found this letter in our mailbox. After contacting the police, they entered the home of our neighbor across the street. Over a span of 5 days, they found a total of 15 bodies hidden in different parts of his house. He had plans to kidnap our daughter, but thanks to this mysterious stranger, his plan was intercepted. We still have not found the girl who wrote this. We like to think she made it out alive, but sadly, it isn't likely as Ryan Morehouse is also missing. We don't even know her name, but we did find the little crack in the wall, the one where she saw my daughter grow up from. I bet you're wondering who I am, what my given name was, who my parents were, where I lived, where I went to school, what I dreamt of becoming when I'd grow up. I don't know. Maybe you didn't wonder. Maybe I just wished you did. Maybe I just wished someone did. When you're locked away for so long, watching as the world passes by, not taking a second look at the blue house with the man with the fake smile, you start to understand that you don't really matter. You start to understand that the world only cares about the sensationalism and scare factor of a missing teen. They don't really care about the face in the missing poster. And that's when you begin to float. You float when he talks to you. You float when he beats you. You float when he enters you. You float far above it all. I read a long time ago that when you go through a near-death experience, many patients claim to hover above their bodies, watching as doctors and nurses work to save them. They floated. Apparently, this is a mechanism of the brain when it is going through extreme trauma. The event is so inconceivable to the brain that it begins to react in bizarre ways. It becomes detached, or at least pretends to, so that the patient feels safe. Well, I did that. I floated, watching from a distance the things that were happening to me. I guess that's what happens to you when you die a little every day. I guess that's what happens when they kill you a little every day. He was dashing. He was clever. He knew all the words to say. In one single second, our paths crossed and he changed my life forever. I can still clearly see that second in slow motion, the way his smile became distorted, the way he twisted my arms, the way my heart sank and drowned. An abduction is a heart-wrenching, soul-destroying transaction between the captor and the abductee. In one single moment, you realize you've made the greatest mistake of your life. You wish you could go back for just one split second, back to when everything was still all right, back to when you were still only a naive, innocent child. But you can't. It's over before you even had a chance to process it. And although you always thought you would fight like a beast in a situation like this, and you always thought you would defend your body and mind with every single cell in your body, you don't. Something inside you breaks, and you easily become his prisoner. You quickly believe you deserve this for being such a fool. You quickly descend into a madness I wish upon no one. By now you know that I lived in a labyrinth of horrors. My pain seemed eternal. It seemed like purgatory. Sometimes, even now, I wonder if I'm not still there. If all this is just some neurons in my brain creating nicer pathways and showing me the life I wished I had. But there is one thing I always remind myself of when I begin to have these intrusive and deluded thoughts. Children grow up. Maybe I was a young, naive, and easily conquered child once. But even that could not last forever. In the end, children always grow up. But monsters, they always stay monsters. Ryan Morehouse. It's strange to say his name out loud and to no longer be afraid of it, but the strangeness of this new feeling inside me is slowly fading as I realize it was all real. The pain was real. The girls I met were real. He was real. My escape was real. I laid motionless, not breathing, eyes opened, mouth dangling. As he approached me, my body became tense, knowing the things he was capable of. But before he could do anything to me, I floated. The funny, beautiful irony of my story is that he taught me through pain and suffering the one trick that would bring it all to an end. I floated. I flew. As he kicked me that afternoon, I watched from above. But this time, even my physical body didn't react to the pain he inflicted on it. I can't explain to you what happened. Sometimes I think it was some sort of miracle. It was all too perfect. He really thought I had died. I could tell by the shock in his face. I was baffled by all the mistakes he made. I suppose he got used to my powerlessness, but on that day, I had a mission to save you. I couldn't bear to imagine you in his mind, in his hands, in his chambers of torture. As he dropped down to check my pulse, I knew it was over for him. He looked into my dead eyes. He stared intently into them, looking for any sign of life. And then I squinted with a half smile, startling him before I bit down hard into his neck. He never saw my smile coming into his skin. I think it's because he had forgotten what my smile looked like. I never knew I'd enjoy the taste of blood in my mouth so much. As he stumbled to the ground, holding his neck and crying in horror, I stood up. And for once, it was I who looked down at him. For once, it was him who looked up to me. I could see it in his eyes that he knew it was all over. I kicked him in his head until I could no longer recognize him. There was a numbness inside me as I kicked and kicked and kicked. I felt nothing. In the darkness, I drove. I still remembered a bit of my driving lessons I had the year I was abducted. Driving was incredible and freeing. I drove for a long time in his truck. I knew I had to get rid of the car, as the authorities probably would be looking for him and his truck after finding the letter I left you. But I didn't want to be found. I didn't want to speak to anyone, not the police, not any therapists, not the media frenzy surely waiting for me, not even my family. I was thirsty for a freedom that I had never known, a freedom far away from every single living thing. I made it to the desert and walked out of the car, leaving his body in the back seat. I enjoyed the colors of the sun as it lightly went to sleep for the night. The freedom that I felt inside me was indescribable. It was as if I had been born again. As the stars began to dangle above me, I wondered if you had read my letter. I wondered if you felt safe now. I wondered if you were thinking about me. But mostly, I missed you, and it made me anxious. As I enjoyed my freedom in the desert, I heard something coming from behind me. I looked over my shoulder and felt his eyes on me. I quickly turned around as he laughed, blood spilling from his mouth. He really did resemble a monster now. "Did you really think I would be this easy to kill, you stupid cunt?" He laughed, wiping his deformed mouth. "Did you really think I didn't know you weren't dead? Even I have survived worse beatings than that, you fucking fool," I retorted, slowly smiling again. Monsters are funny. They always forget that there can be monsters hidden in pretty little things too. I pulled his gun from my pocket and shot both of his feet. He fell to the ground once again, crying in pain. "I'm not a kid anymore," I said, watching him recoil to the ground. "I'm not a woman either," I paused, my voice changing. "I'm not really even human. I'm not. I am what he made me. I am this thing that can't feel correctly. I am this thing that can float. I am this thing that has learned to accept severe pain. I am this thing, and I've come to accept it. But I don't think the rest of the world would. I won't lie to you. Ryan Morehouse and I, we still live together. Please don't feel bad for me. It is I who chose this. I can't help but feel that only he truly knows me now. Only he knows me in this deformed, twisted version of myself. Only he can understand me because I am what he made me. But he knows. He knows that it's my turn now. He knows that there is nothing he can do about it. He understands that he must serve me now, and that he doesn't have a choice but to be powerless and helpless like I once was. With time, he will learn how to float too. I wanted to write you this letter to give you a proper thank you. Thank you for always being there for me. Through that small crack, that small hole in the wall of the basement, I saw you grow up in your front yard. I saw you shine. It is what truly kept me going. Your beauty, your innocence, your kindness, your wit all made me live longer just so that I could watch you for one more day. It was like watching my favorite TV show, and I didn't want to miss one single episode. So thank you for that glimmer of hope that kept me going through all those years that I was held captive. It makes me eternally happy to know that you'll never know the horrors of that unforgiving basement. It makes me happy to see you on your journey. It makes me happy to know that you've put the fear of Ryan Morehouse behind you. I'm ecstatic that you've chosen criminal justice as your major. I like to believe that I had a little influence in that. I love the way you've decorated your dorm room. I also love what you've done with your hair. When the sunlight hits it just right, the highlights make you look like an actual angel. You might be wondering how I know all of this. Well, I wanted to admit something to you. I still get panic attacks. I still get horrendous flashbacks, and I end up almost drowning in my own sweat at night. So I have done what I've always done to reduce my anxiety. I still watch you. Last night, I had one of the worst flashbacks since I escaped. I could feel him inside me. It was physically painful, so I ran out of my house and drove over to spend some time with you. Watching you sleep made it all go away. The way your chest rhythmically moved up and down brought a calm over me that I've only known when watching you. I apologize that I still have not physically introduced myself to you. I'm just not ready to come out to the world yet. I still have some things to do with Ryan Morehouse before I can reveal myself. But do know, one day, as all monsters do, Ryan Morehouse will expire from this world. And perhaps, only then, will I be truly free. Free to come and introduce myself to you. And maybe then we can be real friends. Maybe then you can accept me for who I am. In the meantime, thank you for your help in my time of need. I'll see you soon. With all my heart, the girl who watches you from afar. 6 months ago, we received a letter. It was a bittersweet moment. We rejoiced as we realized our daughter was saved from a horrific man. But we were saddened to find out that we had lived in front of a house where many young girls had been held captive and murdered. Most of all, we prayed that we could find the anonymous girl who left us the letter. Although we received many messages asking us for an update, we were asked by the detectives and agents not to share information as the investigation was active and ongoing. Normally, I would respect the wishes of law enforcement, however, I find myself in a difficult position. I truly believe the public should know about the dangers that hide behind pretty little houses in pretty little neighborhoods. It is nauseating and petrifying. This is why I've chosen to share it all. The first time we received a letter from the victim, we were thankful for the writer, for the girl. But this second letter has left us shocked and frightened. Once again, we are left with unknowns. The unknown of whether our daughter is now being followed by a stranger, the unknown of the mental state of this stranger, and the unknown identity of the girl who watched our daughter grow up. Come to daddy. You would probably be surprised at the number of bodies one can find out in the desert. You would probably be even more surprised at how often people play with the bodies. But I don't know. Since most of us are tweakers or disadvantaged youth, doomed to repeat the mistakes of our alcoholic mothers and abusive fathers, maybe you wouldn't be surprised at all. My best friend, Cameron, found last winter's corpse du jour, an old man in a dilapidated trailer. A white beard matted with corpse juice hung past his bony knees, so Cameron bought him a Santa hat from the Dollar Tree and christened him Satan Claus. Satan Claus was a popular attraction among the high desert's underbelly until Gidget Gagnon blabbed to her brother, who was a deputy sheriff. This pissed Cameron off. He didn't grow up here, so he didn't understand the rules. There's always a snitch, there's always a whiner, there's always a freak, and there's always someone who fantasizes about killing you. Even if he understood, he'd never have believed that I was both the freak and the person who fantasized about killing him. I'd known Cameron since we were teenage patients at a county psychiatric facility. It was the first time in our lives either of us ever had security or structure. I miss it, honestly. We moved in together the second we could. For the record, we weren't lovers. We never even experimented. I couldn't separate sex from trauma and didn't particularly want to try, so I was voluntarily celibate. This enchanted Cameron because he has a Madonna/whore complex the size of Babylon. I was his pure, unsullied princess. This is why he paid half my bills, supported me emotionally, and asked nothing in return. That's not to say he didn't have sex. Cameron was a bona fide man whore. That's the only reason he went to raves and parties. The girls. We were at just such a party the night I met Daddy. The party was in a bashed-up warehouse that smelled like roadkill and alcohol. Cameron stayed glued to my side for a while, I guess to make sure no one else swooped in to fuck his Madonna off her pedestal. But it didn't last. It never does. A girl I recognized vaguely, waist-length black hair and makeup you could scrape off with a putty knife, was eyeing him ostentatiously. I thought it was disrespectful. To the untrained eye, Cameron and I were a couple after all. Now Cameron was drunk by this point. He gets handsy when he's drunk, even with me, so I cuddled up and wrapped myself around him. He was enjoying it. Cuddling doesn't break the Madonna pedestal. It just makes him feel special. But I messed up. We were sitting in the corner starting to play around. He was looking at me in a way no one else ever does. Bright and warm and hopeful, like I'm the most important person in the world. I could feel myself teetering on the edge of the pedestal. Then he leaned in to kiss me. I panicked. Before I knew it, I was running. I pretended I was flying, that I'd dash outside and leap into the air, taking flight among the mad whirl of constellations. I could almost see it, the warehouse shrinking as I gained altitude, the night wind cooling the sick heat inside me. For a mad moment felt the feathers sprouting from my skin, itchy and hard and growing fast. I made it outside and halted. No feathers, no flight, no night wind scraping the brokenness away. By the time Cameron found me, the night's chill had settled into my bones and I was shivering. Only when he tapped my shoulder did I realize I'd been crying. I wiped my eyes hastily and turned. The black-haired girl lingered several feet away. She had a small smile, halfway between anxious and satisfied. "Hey!" Cameron slurred slightly. "Demetria and I are leaving. Will you get home okay?" "Her name's not Demetria," I said in as bored a tone as I could muster. "It's Brittany." All at once, he looked a lot less drunk. "You know her name doesn't matter, don't you?" We stared at one another for what felt a terribly long time. He was waiting for something, and I knew it, but I couldn't give it. Even if I could, I'd stop mattering the second he got it. "Don't keep her waiting, Cameron." His face somehow drew upward, then fell into a flat smile. He gave me a half-assed wave and left with Demetria. I counted to 1,000, then went back inside. A humid rush of sweat, piss, and beer burps crashed over me like a wave. The crowd writhed and squirmed like maggots. Music blared. Bargain bin lights spun over everything. It all seemed so pointless. Nothing would be accomplished here tonight. Nothing would ever be accomplished here on any night. I looked down at the floor. Amid the chewing gum, spilled drinks, gouges, and stains, I saw 3 words written in black Sharpie. "Come to Daddy." An arrow underneath pointed east. I looked up at the pointless party, and I thought of Cameron, of the way he looked at me. He'd be giving that look to Demetria just now. I followed the arrow. Halfway across the warehouse was another message and another arrow. "Keep coming." I followed it to the back wall, to another Sharpie message. "Hurry, Daddy's waiting for you." This arrow was absurdly long and pointed to a bland door I wouldn't have noticed otherwise. I opened the door. Cold, foul air swept over me. I gulped a deep breath. It was preferable to the sweat-heavy humidity behind me. Before me was a set of rickety metal stairs. I descended and found myself rewarded with another message. "Daddy's coming through the back." I turned into a low concrete corridor lit by flickering fluorescent lights. Something came into view at the other end, bony, huddled, and terribly small. A body. Its head lay tilted against the wall, open jaw yawing up at the ceiling. Overhead, painted in streaky letters, was a single word, Daddy. An oil drum sat next to Daddy. I withdrew, gagging, when I saw the half-rotten sludge of dead vermin at the bottom. A nightstand sat on his other side, bearing a plastic container filled with Hershey Kisses. A hand-lettered sign read, "Give Daddy a kiss." This crazy bullshit was enough to salvage the night. Smirking slightly, I unwrapped a kiss and popped it into Daddy's gaping mouth. A second later, he shuddered and began to chew. His head lolled weakly. With a heavy grunt, he flopped forward so that his eye sockets were trained on me. Something glinted within, dark and iridescent like dirty oil. He swallowed the kiss and spoke. "What do you want from me?" Terror and mirth whirled together in a mad tornado. "What?" He lurched forward, desiccated body hitting the concrete with a clatter. "I can give you one thing, any one thing. What shall it be?" I thought about it. I really did. If wish-granting, Hershey-loving corpses exist, might as well take advantage of the wish. Except I didn't know what to wish for. I didn't want to be normal. People like Demetria are normal. I didn't want another life. Why bother when I barely want to live? I couldn't have Cameron. He'd have to turn into something he's not before that would ever be a possibility. I didn't want money. I didn't want a house. I didn't want a better job. All of these are changes. At some point, every change causes pain. I've had enough pain for a lifetime. "I don't know," I said. Daddy's dark eyes flared. "That does complicate things." He smiled. Papery skin cracked and split like porcelain varnish. "But it makes them interesting. Give me a rat." He pointed to the vermin barrel. "I need protein." It didn't occur to me to resist. This was the first time in memory that I actually felt alive. I snatched a mushy tail from the morass. Only half a rat emerged, melting into translucent rot before my eyes. I tossed it at Daddy, who lunged like a spaniel and caught it in his mouth. He swallowed it whole, then said, "I can tell you the deepest desire of your heart and give it to you." Why? Because I can. This was the only justification I recognized, the only one I believed, the only one that made sense. Then do it? Not that simple. I need energy. More rats? Well, of a kind, he chuckled. But not exactly. He watched me expectantly. Those sockets glinted madly, reflecting every color under the sun and several I couldn't describe. Music thumped from upstairs, loosing trickles of dust and reverberating through Daddy's lair. I don't get it. People. I need people. Or rather, parts of people. Skin, eyes, hair, livers. I eyed him suspiciously, wondering just how fast this monkey's paw motherfucker could run. You could get all of those from me. You're my client. Clients pay the provider's price. You pay this provider's price in bodies. I need 2 eyes, 2 lungs, 1 stomach, 1 liver, 1 skin. He continued, rattling off, seeming every organ in the human body. Then he finished, and each must come from a different person. I contemplated this briefly. You'll show me what I want. Something, I added silently, that will make me happy. And you'll give it to me? I swear on my name. Which is... He wagged a finger. Sorry, darling. Names are power here. But an oath upon my name, spoken or otherwise, is unbreakable. I watched him. He smiled widely. The thin remains of his mummified skin split and flaked off like snow. Under the lights, he looked like a cross between a Halloween decoration and a bad Photoshop project. Except for his eyes, those dark, writhing masses of nearly hidden color. I turned around and went back up to the party. Almost immediately, I spied a long, shimmering curtain of black hair across the floor. For a triumphant moment, I thought it was Demetria. But no. She resembled Demetria, though, and that was enough for me. She wandered around nervously, a tragically overgrown little girl lost. I pretended I was her ride home and led her downstairs. Daddy warped and shuddered and grew into something that blotted the lights, something I couldn't look at without panicking, and swallowed her whole. I kept my eyes closed until Daddy cleared his throat. He'd grown skin, thick and fleshy, lipless. It reminded me absurdly of a squashily upholstered sofa. Dull, cracked teeth glinted in the recessed mouth. "Will I have more tonight?" I got Daddy a stomach, 2 eyes, and a liver before the night was done. I chose dirty, dusty men, the kind that looked as if they'd been sucked dry. Homeless tweakers, people who, for all intents and purposes, have already disappeared. I know how sick it is, but please try to understand. The only things I ever feel are fear and panic, and that only happens when someone touches me unexpectedly. Can you imagine what it's like? To be dull and empty like a reptile, except when you're accidentally triggered into reliving the worst moments of your awful life. I'd have given anything to change that, anything to have something that would make me happy. So I fed Daddy people that no one would miss. It's easy to find them if you know what to look for. Men with sucked-in faces who ride children's bicycles, women with nice bodies and ancient, haunted faces, dust-caked teenagers, and old men sleeping under tarps in the desert. It took a month. In that month, Cameron began to date Demetria. She spent more time in my apartment than I did. After I walked in on her blowing him after a long shift, I went to my room, started to pack. I don't have much, so it didn't take long. Cameron caught me as I dropped the last bag in the trunk. His eyes were wet. "She doesn't mean anything," he said. I slammed the trunk shut. "Then that makes you a shitbag, Cameron. Tell me to dump her, I'll do it." "I'm not your mommy." He ran his hands through his hair. His lips started to tremble. Loathing exploded through me. "You're the most important person in my life. Only because I can't be." I climbed into my car and drove off. After a couple of brutally cold nights under the stars, I moved into the warehouse with Daddy. He sang lullabies and fed me Hershey Kisses from that dirty plastic bowl. No matter how many I ate, the bowl never emptied. Daddy didn't expect conversation, affection, or any attention at all. All said and done, it was a relief. I still went to work, of course. Cameron came in every night. I felt a cruel surge of triumph whenever he wandered in. He still looked at me as he always had, like I was the only person that mattered. Then Demetria followed him. The fight was a truly spectacular example of a white trash beatdown. He and Demetria were banned, and I got written up. It didn't really bother me. That night I found a raggedy fat man in foul-smelling clothes out behind the restaurant. I told him he could stay at my house if he wanted. He was slow, childlike, and took me at my word. Daddy ate him quickly and spit the bones into the rat barrel. Then he burped, enormous fleshy cheeks beating like sails in the wind, and sat down. "We're almost done," he said. "Only one body left." I did a quick calculation. 2, a heart and a brain. He chuckled indulgently. "I've had a brain all this time. All I need is a heart." By this time, Daddy looked like a cross between Nosferatu, Frankenstein's monster, and a Picasso painting. Pale, fleshy, and muscular, with ridiculous Fabio hair and a thick, indecently red mouth that didn't quite fit his skin. He had one green eye and one brown eye. In place of whites, that murky, oily rainbow continued to swirl. "I'll find it tonight," I told him. He hesitated theatrically. "There's a special rule for the heart." My skin tightened. "I need your heart." My pulse beat slow and heavy in my throat. "That's against the rules." He laughed. "You misunderstand. I don't need this." He tapped my chest. "Tired little muscle. I need your heart, only it's inside someone else." "What?" I asked levelly. "Are you talking about?" "A heart that is yours is a heart that loves you." "You mean Cameron?" He smiled and nodded. I almost left. But why? Cameron didn't really love me. He loved his illusion, his pure little princess, someone he couldn't touch, someone who was too good to be touched. It was a paradox. The moment he got what he wanted would be the moment he lost it. But he could help me get what I wanted. If he really loved me, that would make him happy. Wouldn't it? I drove to my old apartment and knocked. Cameron answered the door, smelling like dirty clothes and whiskey. His eyes went wide when he saw me. Then he started to cry. "She's gone," he said. "I'm so sorry." "You've got nothing to be sorry for." I came inside, held him. He got handsy. I let him. Maybe because I was expecting it this time, or maybe because there was finally a light at the end of the tunnel, it was okay. Not enjoyable. My heart raced and I felt sick, and he was too intoxicated to do a whole lot. But he was gentle and careful. He got what he wanted. Before he could realize that he'd knocked his angel off her pedestal, before he could take my heart away, I talked him into a drive. The drive to the warehouse was the happiest I'd ever seen him. I led him through the warehouse, pausing every minute or two for a hug or a kiss. That was fine. It was good to make him happy. Quid pro quo. Only when he saw Daddy hulking and grinning under the fluorescent lights did Cameron realize that something was wrong. Daddy stood up. He looked awful, 9 feet tall and completely wrong, a hybrid of every childhood nightmare. "Get back," Cameron told me. Daddy charged. Cameron shoved me toward the stairs. I felt his hand on my back, felt his pulse beating through his wrist for a fraction of a second. Then Daddy grew, blotting the lights, bones creaking and cracking as he exploded into something I couldn't comprehend. And then, like all the others before him, Cameron was gone. My heart began to pound, from grief or excitement. I couldn't tell. "We're done," I said. "So where is it?" "Where is what?" Daddy stretched luxuriously. "What I want." I could feel my blood pressure rising. "The thing I want." "You mean the deepest desire of your heart?" "Yes." He grinned and dropped to his haunches, posing like a runner about to take off. "Here it is." He took a deep breath. The stillness was excruciating, poised overhead like a crushing weight. Then Daddy opened his mouth and threw up. Bloody and foul, full of shattered bones and flesh, it flooded toward me like a tide. And floating within it, a pale crown jewel, was Cameron's head. Daddy gurked up a final outpouring of viscera and settled back. "There it is." My skin prickled and stung. I thought of feathers, small and hard and piercing the skin as they forced their way up. I turned and ran. I did not fly through the air, but I flew across the sand. Stars lit my way, a million eyes glazing the desert in silvery darkness. Sometime around dawn, just as gold and red bloomed across the horizon, I tripped and fell. I remember watching the sunrise. Then everything went dark. Cameron found me. When we got home, he helped me into the shower. I sat blankly as dust and dried blood skirled down the drain. After 20 minutes, he helped me out and put me to bed. I fell asleep quickly. I woke around mid-afternoon. Sun streamed through the window. Cameron slept beside me. His shirt was hiked up halfway over his back, revealing what looked like a tattoo. I lifted his shirt, half expecting to see Demetria's embellished name, and froze. Not a name, not even a tattoo, just 7 words written in black Sharpie. "Give Daddy a little more credit, honey." The man's ad offered $5,000 to sit in a chair and stare at him. The ad offered $5,000 and said that the desired activity could be completed in an hour. It stated, fairly redundantly, that it was not a sexual thing, insisted that all the witness would need to do is sit in a chair and stare ahead. The only other details expressed were that you could not move during the experience, nor could you talk, this inability being out of a requested self-restraint, not through a means of physical prevention. Being an abysmally broke college student and having a friend with whom I could depend upon for my rescue if something strange happened, I answered the ad only a few minutes after coming across it. The person who had put out the ad had provided a phone number, which I called. Sending a text resulted in me being informed that it was a landline. The person answered, and we briefly discussed the location where the interaction was to be held, and I confirmed the amount of money to be paid. Like his ad, he repeatedly reminded me that it was in no way a carnal activity. Apparently, he'd gotten a lot of answers to the ad from people with that particular preconception. My friend took the day off from work, insisted, despite my protests, that we could wait until the following day when he was off, and we drove to the agreed-upon location. It was a house in a suburban neighborhood, which was somewhat comforting. If the man was an axe murderer, there was a chance my screams of terror could be heard by quite a few people. I joked aloud about this, but my friend didn't find it funny. The ad specified and the man reiterated that I be alone when entering the house, so I had my friend stay in the car. Being similarly broke, I offered him $500 for his help, an unnecessary incentive, his words, to not leave me if the man turns out to be truly insane. I got out of the car and walked across the lawn, which, unlike those of other houses, hadn't been maintained. The grass was high, weeds threatened to burst through the concrete of the driveway and sidewalk. The man had sounded fairly old on the phone, so I attributed the ill-maintained property to an inability to perform the duties, rather than some indication of insanity. I was instructed to immediately enter once I had arrived, so I didn't bother knocking. The unlocked door opened into a foyer, and connected to this was a hall that led into a kitchen. The hall held a single door, which I assumed led into a closet or down to a basement. Leftward from the kitchen was a spacious room devoid of furnishing, save for 2 steel, foldable chairs and an equally foldable dinner table. The foyer, hall, and kitchen were in similar states of bareness and aren't worth remarking on beyond that. Sitting in one of the chairs in the great room was a man who I knew at once to be the dealer of the ad. There was a certain familiarity about him, one of those times when a voice is an almost eerie reflection of the person from whom it issued. He nodded and gave a wave, but it did not speak. I approached and sat down at the chair opposite him. To my left, on the dinner table, was a box. The top of the box was a clear case, through which a neat stack of money could be seen. The base of the box was black, with a timer at its face and a clasping mechanism which sealed the upper portion to the bottom. It is a time release device. Now that you're here, I will start it. He immediately does. And once an hour has passed from this point, the box will open and you are free to take your payment. You needn't say anything once that time arrives and can depart a slightly richer person. Now, all you must do is look at me. You may of course blink, but please do not speak or look away. It's very important that you be both silent and still. And so the staring session began. It was expectedly awkward for the first few minutes. He stared right back at me. But after a while, the oddness of the circumstances became dull, and I grew accustomed to them. His face wasn't unusual, but it wasn't exactly handsome. Easy enough to look at, but not someone you would have necessarily wanted to linger on without incentive. He was about 65, hair grayed and thin, face starting to sag, blue eyes slightly squinting, visual acuity no doubt dwindling. Despite his incessant assertions to the contrary, I couldn't help but think that he derived some abstract sexual amusement from this. Some sort of staring into the eyes of your lover thing. But despite the incredibly uncomfortable experience of that hour, soon to be described, he at no point exhibited any behavior which would suggest arousal. About 10 minutes in, the strangeness of the experience was doubled. From below and then far behind me, I heard a shifting clamor, as if a group of people had ascended the basement stairs and gathered just before the kitchen, chatting excitedly. I was going to turn. The ad hadn't mentioned the presence of others, but the man's eyes seemed to almost plead with me to remain focused on him. He didn't speak a word, though. Resisting instinct, I kept my gaze fixed on him and listened to the noise of the crowd behind me. The weird thing was that while I could hear them talking and even mentally differentiate between speakers, I couldn't understand a single word that was spoken. They had moved into the kitchen by this point, but none of the words were intelligible to me. And even weirder was that it was obvious they were speaking English. I could recognize the nuance and structure of the language. The man's eyes imparted nothing beyond the unspoken insistence that I keep mine on him. My inability to recognize the words, which were clearly English, troubled me greatly, and I started saying words in my head to reassure myself that I had not somehow forgotten the language. I couldn't check exactly how much time had passed, the timer being too far out of my peripheral vision, but about 40 minutes into the experience, the voices were right behind me, in the great room. There were perhaps 12 distinct voices, all chattering and laughing and speaking some unrecognizable variants of a language I'd been speaking for nearly 2 decades. Women, men, and children conversed just behind me, not a single one, for even a moment, being understandable. I was terrified. Their appearance and migration from the basement to right behind me was strange, yes, but the possibility that something was wrong with me, that I might have had some sort of stroke or neurological slip-up, was far worse. My eyes had stayed on the man, but my mind had momentarily receded, turning over these bleak possibilities. Upon returning my focus to the man, I saw that he was crying. Inaudibly, of course, but the tears were there. The lips, slightly quivering. Instinct almost compelled me to ask what was wrong, but I stopped myself, both for the sake of the experience and a new fear that speaking would somehow draw the attention of the partiers to me. And for some inexpressible reason, I was sure that getting their attention wasn't something I wanted. A new terror dawned then. What if the group continues their movement and they press forward, swarming around us? With each second that passed, I grew more certain that seeing these people would cause something horrible to happen. Their voices did grow louder, but no closer in proximity. I started to shake, my heartbeat quickened, and my breathing became labored. I tried to calm myself, but the presence of those people behind me was so dreadful in a way that I still cannot find the words to properly describe. Against my control, as I shuddered, I let out a low moan. It was barely audible, more of a release of air than proper emission of the vocal cords. But the man's eyes grew wide with terror, and from behind me, for the first time, I heard something I understand. Oh, would someone like to join the party? I froze in place, even my heart seemed to quiet its movement. The noise behind me still continued, but with considerably less people causing it. The attention of several members had apparently been drawn from the conversation. Drawn to me. I became like a statue, not even allowing myself to blink. The man's eyes remained wide, but he'd stopped crying. He stared at me with what I can only describe as mindless terror. Despite my earlier belief that seeing these people would bring about some horrible event, I tried to see within his eyes even a dim reflection of the scene behind me. But nothing was reflected, not even his thoughts. I could have sworn I heard a request to join the party, a woman's voice. Think it was one of dear old Dad's friends? A man's voice. Ha! That old fool couldn't keep a friend if his life depended on it. You two sure saw to that. A third voice, another man. A chorus of disconcerting laughter erupts. Oh well, shall we go back downstairs? The others who hadn't spoken seemed to respond in agreement, although I couldn't understand them. As gradually as they had come, the voices went away, returning downstairs and eventually fading to inaudibility. A few minutes later, the timer beside us went off, indicating that the hour had passed. The man almost collapsed at this moment, sagging back in his seat and breathing raggedly. I went to help him, but he held up a hand, dismissing me. Before I could say anything, he cried out, "Thank you," and repeated the same multiple times between breaths. He'd started crying again, although these tears seemed to be from relief, or maybe even joy. After a few moments of this, he recovered himself and sat upright in his chair. He gestured to the box and said, "The money is yours. You are free to go. Thank you sincerely for accompanying me during this time, for noticing me. Please, take the money and leave this place. I'll be heading out myself soon enough." Despite the utterly bizarre experience, I didn't want to ask any questions. That migratory horde of partiers had scared the shit out of me, and I didn't want to remain in the home longer than I had to. I grabbed and pocketed the money, not bothering to count it, and walked away, waving behind me as I went. I made my exit as quickly and quietly as possible. I closed the door, relieved that I hadn't heard rushing footsteps ascending the stairs. My friend was still parked outside, right where I left him. I got into the car and let out the heaviest sigh of my life. Guess he was a no-show, huh? Not surprised. No one just gives away $5,000. What are you talking about? I took the money out of my pocket and showed it to him. He looked at the money, then to me with an expression of incredulity. But you were only in there for 5 minutes. Did you steal it? I laughed. The kind of nervous laugh you let out with someone says something extremely odd, or after you just survived some perilous experience. In my case, either one could have been the cause. I eventually composed myself and said, "What are you talking about? I was in there for an hour. The money was in a locked box with a timer set for that exact amount of time." My friend's expression went from one of disbelief to worry, and he pointed at the clock on his radio. I remembered what time it had been when I first left the car and saw that only 5 minutes had passed since then. I stared at the clock and then turned my gaze to the money, as if it would somehow reconcile the disparity in perceptions of time. "What exactly happened in there?" He asked this softly, which made me feel even worse. I didn't want him to think I was crazy or that I had hurt someone and stolen the money. But to avoid the former suspicion, I couldn't tell him about what actually happened. I looked around, first at the house and the rest of the neighborhood, but saw no excessive cars which would have accounted for the presence of the partiers. Also, it was noon on a Tuesday, not exactly the prime circumstances for a party. "Please, just drive." I wanted to get away from the house. "Not until you tell me what happened." Firmer, but not yet confrontational. I took a moment to consider my options, then told him a version of the truth that didn't make me sound crazy. I didn't mention anything about the roving crowd of people. I told him about the experience with the man and said that it must have seemed longer than it really was, or that maybe he had set the timer wrong. My friend listened quietly, and once I had finished, he sat silent for a moment, staring at the house through my window. I thought he was going to accept my answer, but without saying anything, he got out of the car. Before I could stop him, he jogged across the lawn and went into the house. I should have gone in with him, but my nerves prevented me from re-entering. He returned a few minutes, silently entering and starting the car. "Well?" I really meant, well, what did he say? It was empty. Completely empty. No one was inside. There wasn't even a single piece of furniture. He pulled away from the curb and started driving down the street. I didn't know what to say, so I said nothing, and he dropped me off at my house without saying another word. I don't know what happened to me in that house, but the money is real enough. I've already used some of it to buy food. My friend didn't want anything of it. I can understand that, I guess. I don't know what he believes. I don't know what I even believe, but hopefully he doesn't think I did something terrible. Maybe he thinks I made the whole thing up, although there's no way I would have been able to gather 5,000 together, certainly not for some prank. Regardless of the truth, the money is real, and for that I'm thankful. My husband keeps asking the same question over and over, and it's driving me up a wall. My husband started telling dad jokes before he was old enough to pour his own juice, so I may have missed a red flag or two, or 4, but in my defense, this kind of juvenile behavior seemed very on-brand at the time. Let me give you some quick context. The entire first year Steven and I lived together, Anytime we exchanged "I love yous," he would quickly pinch my cheek and shout, "Bzzzt, make your own damn waffles." Neither of us even liked waffles. He just got a kick out of spoiling the moment. And although I'd groan and roll my eyes, his dumb shtick cracked me up. Lord help me, it absolutely cracked me up. So when I shuffled into the kitchen one morning, fresh from sleep, his odd remark barely registered. "Can you see me smile?" I glanced at Steven from across the center island. "What?" He leaned back and blinked. "What?" "Thought you said something." He shrugged and shook his head. My imagination then. As I poured a cup of coffee, he said it again. Quieter this time. "Can you see me smile?" Here we go. Steven's jokes were usually unfunny for that first week or two until his relentless commitment tickled my funny bone. "That's nice, honey," I said after a yawn. Then I circled the island and went in for a kiss, but instead noticed a sore beneath his left nostril. Oof. Get some cream on that. On my way out of the room, Steven began ratcheting coughs. Things seemed normal for the next few days. He periodically dropped the smile line mid-conversation and then continued on like normal. Once or twice he even said it over the phone. "Hey, hun, I'm at the store. Do or need any, can you see me smile? Kitchen roll." Steven picked up some cream for his increasingly gruesome scab, although that didn't seem to help. If anything, it made things worse. One evening as we sat down to dinner, he slurped up some pasta, stared dead into my eyes, and twisted his mouth in this horrible pumpkin grin. "Can you see me smile?" I set down my fork. "Okay, enough. It's been a week and I'm still not laughing." "What are you talking about?" "That stupid, can you see me smile? Can you see me smile thing?" He cocked his head to the side. "Huh? Don't even start. Just drop it already." The two of us went back and forth, him pushing me to explain myself, me growing steadily more agitated. "Can't you just admit this gag didn't land and move on?" "Well, the only gags that do land are ones about airplanes, but I still don't understand what you're talking about." The tension immediately dissolved as I half groaned, half chuckled at his zinger. Later, as I soaked in the tube with 2 cucumber slices over my eyes, the door at the far side of the room creaked open. "Steven," I called. Another creak. "Hello?" I slid up, catching the slices. There was no one else in the steamy room. A draft had most likely blown the door open. I settled back into a comfortable position. Afterward, while toweling myself off, I noticed a smiley face in the fogged-up mirror above the sink, accompanied by the words, "Can you see me smile?" Steven had already turned in for the night, so my lecture about boundaries got placed on hold until morning. Sometime after midnight, an awful dream about falling into this endless black void startled me awake. For a moment, the sensation carried into the real world, no doubt because the mattress had compressed beneath our combined weight. I opened my eyes in an attempt to escape the sensation of that awful dream and saw Steven, who held himself directly above me, supported by his elbows and knees. His nose was pressed right up against mine. I bit down on a scream. Steven's sore had spread. Now he looked like a toddler after devouring a plate of jam sandwiches. Was he picking at those oozing scabs? "What the fuck?" I shouted. Immediately, he rolled onto his half of the bed and faced the wall, pretending to snore. I thumped the back of his skull hard. "You almost gave me a heart attack." He acted all innocent, like he just woke up, the corners of his mouth twitching as though pulled by invisible strings. "Ow, what was that for?" He propped up against the backboard, one hand rubbing the bump across the back of his head, the other fingering a leaky sore under his chin. Turning away, I said, "This is getting seriously old. You're not funny." He began to protest, but then entered a harsh coughing fit. It rose from deep inside his chest as he raced down the hall. "And go see a dermatologist," I shouted after him. When the alarm screeched, the far side of the bed was still empty. I crossed the upstairs landing and went into the bathroom, where Steven stood before the sink, eyes fixed on his own reflection. He stretched and twisted his lips, which had gone pale at the corners, using his forefingers. From the doorway I said, "Look, sorry about last night, but you scared the crap out of me. Can we act like the whole thing never happened?" He pulled the sides of his mouth apart. The gums looked gray and unhealthy. I rolled my eyes. Fine. On my way across the hall, he shouted, "Can you see me smile?" I called my mom from work, who listened to me vent for 20 minutes. He just won't give it a rest with this smiling thing. Be upfront. Explain how much it's bothering you. That sounded reasonable. Steven liked juvenile jokes, granted, but he wasn't a man-child or anything. Most likely the two of us could get this straightened out and then go for a romantic meal someplace fancy. Back home, Steven was in the downstairs lounge, furiously scribbling into a notebook. "Can we talk?" I asked. He stayed hunched forward, his attention fixated on his writing. "Sorry if I was a little short-tempered last night. I didn't mean to hit you so hard. But this joke? It really got under my skin. You think we could pretend the whole thing never happened?" No response. "Can you please answer me? Or at least acknowledge you're listening?" I moved forward and snatched the notepad away. Steven stood, suddenly enough to startle me, and grabbed it back. For a split second, I glimpsed the words, "Can you see me smile?" written over and over again. He grinned, exposing teeth of startling whiteness. Had he bleached them? This wasn't a joke anymore. It was full-blown mental illness. "Steven, talk to me. What's wrong?" He cleared his watery throat. "Can you see me smile?" He tossed the notebook aside and took a single step forward, arms outstretched. Thin trickles of blood ran along his chin from where he'd compulsively nibbled his bottom lip. "Can you see me smile?" I retreated into the hall. "Steven, can you see me smile?" He coughed harshly before saying it again in a kind of hoarse growl. Thick wads of saliva flew from those pale lips. I spun on my heels and made for the door, Steven walking after me. "Can you see me smile?" He followed me out of the house and across the front walkway. The second I pulled the door of my Ford Escort shut, he drum-rolled the window. "Can you see me smile? Can you see me smile?" As I slipped the vehicle into gear, he breathed over the glass to fog it up and wrote a backwards C-A-N. It's a miracle I didn't plow over him barreling out of that driveway in reverse. My eyes had gone all red and puffy by the time I reached Mom's place. The police showed zero interest in Steven's condition. "Yeah, sure, your husband keeps telling you to smile. We'll get right on that." Neither did the paramedics. "You want us to send an ambulance over a nasty rash?" Steven didn't respond to any of my messages, nor answer my calls. That night, I lay awake praying he was okay, that he'd made use of the mental health resources I'd sent over. Mom told me to steer clear until we could arrange for somebody to accompany me home, but laying in that cold, empty bed, I had terrible nightmares about Steven hurting himself. He needed help, and it couldn't wait. When I pulled into the driveway, the house was entirely dark. A nasty aroma hit me the second I pushed open the front door. A strangely familiar, coppery scent. There were dull thuds from somewhere upstairs. I slowly climbed the steps. In the landing, I flicked on the light and stifled a yelp. Scribbled up and down the walls were the words, "Can you see me smile?" Steven had covered every inch of space from floor to ceiling. My heart kicked into a higher gear. The door to the bathroom sat slightly ajar. I tiptoed forward, the color of the writing switching from black to red in what I assumed was lipstick or paint. Gently I rapped the door. "Steven?" I called, so low I almost couldn't hear myself. Then after a little while I went in. My husband was crouched in the corner, naked, his back to me. He dragged a lobster-red hand up and down the wall, smearing the word S-E-E over the cream-colored tiles, stopping only to replenish the ink by vomiting thick red phlegm onto his fingers. Oh fuck, it was blood. He'd written those words with his own blood. "Can you see me smile?" he snarled along with a full body spasm. There was something wrong with his voice. He sounded like a patient in a dentist's chair with a prop in their mouth. The door made a cree sound as I flinched back without meaning to. Stephen's head perked up. I spun into the hall and raced toward the stairs. Halfway there, Stephen threw himself hard against the back of my legs, sending us both careening down the steps. I landed flat on my back. Directly above my head, two blurry light bulbs circled one another. I watched them go round and round until two Stephens, their mouths caked with dry, crusty blood, leaned into my window of vision. He pinned me down, and between gruesome wheezes that slid up from his throat, he repeated those 5 words again and again. As my vision stabilized, I realized it wasn't just blood on his face. Tendons and jaw muscles were exposed, pulling and vibrating like overtuned guitar strings. Fragments of bone even shined through in places. The lips and the surrounding area had been chewed or cut or scratched away. His cheeks hung loose in torn flaps. He brought us nose to nose, his exposed jaw inches from my mouth. "Can you see me smile?" That raw sewage breath absolutely reeked. A big purple tongue slid out of his mouth, finding its way inside my right nostril. As I lashed out against him, raw meat peeled away beneath my fingernails. He eventually made a sound like a cat hacking up a fur ball, exposed teeth chattering and closing and crunching. I seized the opportunity by worming my way out from under him and made a break for the kitchen, where I armed myself with a steak knife. He followed me into the room, canines bared. "I'm fucking warning you!" I screamed. He grinned, although I could tell only by the eyes, those mad eyes that almost seemed to laugh. As he shuffled forward, his pincer jaw clamped shut again and again. Finally, he lunged, and I rammed that knife straight into his throat. Stephen's body went completely limp before slumping onto the floor. The paramedics actually retched when they arrived. "Craziest fucking thing I ever saw," said the taller of the pair. A police officer couldn't believe the story. Still a stammering mess, I recounted how Stephen had mutilated himself before attacking me over and over. He took me to the station for an official statement, after which Mom took me to her place, where, for some odd reason, my mouth wouldn't stay closed. I sobbed into her shoulder, licking my lips again and again. My tongue had the texture of a carpet, plus something kept turning over in my gut. Acid reflux, maybe. Eventually, an urge to open my mouth and let out a giant, irresistible yawn overpowered me. Then Mom reeled away, her face laced with concern. "What do you mean, honey?" I threw her a confused look and scratched my itchy mouth. "What do you mean? What do I mean?" She reached over and wiped a tear off my cheek. "Why wouldn't I be able to see you smile?" A story to scare my son. "Son, we need to have a chat about internet safety." I slowly crumpled down onto the floor next to him. His laptop was open and he was playing Minecraft on a public server. His eyes were locked into the action. Comments scrolled down the side of the screen in a chat box. "Son, can you stop your game for a minute?" He exited the world, closed the laptop, and looked up at me. "Dad, is this going to be another cheesy, scary story?" "What?" I faked hurt feelings for a second, and then grinned at him. "I thought you liked my cautionary tales." He grew up listening to my stories about children who encountered witches, ghosts, werewolves, and trolls. Like many generations of parents, I use scary stories to reinforce morals and teach lessons about safety. Single dads like me should use all the parenting tools at their disposal. He scrunched his face a little. "They were fine when I was 6, but now that I'm getting older, they don't scare me anymore. They seem kinda silly. If you are going to tell a story about the internet, can you make it really, really scary?" I squinted at him incredulously. He folded his arms. "Dad, I'm 10, and I can handle it." Okay, I'll try," I began. "Once upon a time, there was a boy named Colby. His expression indicated that he wasn't impressed with the terror of the introduction. He sighed deeply and settled in for one of Dad's cheesy stories. I continued. Colby went online and joined several children's websites. After a while, he started talking to other kids in-game and on the message boards. He made friends with another 10-year-old boy named Helper23. They liked the same video games and shows. They laughed at each other's jokes. They explored new games together. After several months of friendship, Colby gave Helper23 6 diamonds in a game they were playing. This was a very generous gift. Colby's birthday was coming up and Helper23 wanted to send him a cool present in real life. Colby figured it wouldn't hurt to give Helper23 his home address, as long as he promised not to tell it to any strangers or grown-ups. Helper23 swore he wouldn't tell anyone else, not even his own parents, and set about mailing the package. I paused the story and asked my son, "Do you think that was a good idea?" "No," he said, shaking his head vigorously. In spite of himself, he was getting into the story. Well, neither did Colby. Colby felt guilty about giving away his home address, and his guilt began to grow and grow. By the time he put on his pajamas the next night, his guilt and fear were larger than anything else in his life. He resolved to admit the truth to his parents. The punishment would be steep, but it was worth it to have a clear conscience. He squirmed in his bed as he waited for his parents to tuck him in. My son knew the scary part was coming up. In spite of his tough talk, he leaned forward wide-eyed. I spoke quietly and deliberately. He heard all the noises of the house. The washing machine bounced around in the laundry room. Branches scraped against the brick outside his room. His baby brother cooed in the nursery. And there were some other noises he couldn't quite pinpoint. Finally, his dad's footsteps echoed down the hall. "Hey, Dad," he called out nervously. "I have something to tell you." His dad stuck his head in the doorway at a weird angle. In the darkness, his mouth didn't seem to move, and the eyes were all wrong. "Yes, son." The voice was way off, too. "Are you okay, Dad?" the boy asked. "Uh-huh," sung the father in his strangely affected voice. Colby pulled his covers up defensively. Is Mom around?" "Here I am." Mom's head popped into the doorway below Dad's. Her voice was an unnatural falsetto. "Were you about to tell us that you gave our home address to Helper23? You shouldn't have done that. We told you never to give out personal information on the internet," she continued. "He wasn't really a kid. He just pretended to be one. Do you know what he did? He came to our house, broke in, and murdered both of us, just so he could spend some time with you." A fat man in a wet jacket emerged in the child's doorway, holding the two severed heads. Colby shrieked and gasped as the man dropped the heads on the ground, unsheathed his knife, and moved into the room to work on the boy. My son screamed too. He twisted his hands defensively over his face, but we were just getting started with the story. After several hours, the boy was almost dead, and his screams had become whimpers. The killer noticed the wailing of a baby in another room and removed his knife from Colby. This was a special treat. He had never murdered a baby before and was excited about the prospect. Helper23 left Colby to die and followed the cries through the house like a homing beacon. In the nursery, he walked to the crib, picked the baby up, and held it in his arms. He moved towards the changing table to get a better look. But as he held the baby, the crying died down. The baby looked up and smiled. Helper23 had never held a baby, but he gently bounced it in his arms like a pro. He wiped his bloody hands on the blanket so he could stroke the baby's cheek. "Hey there, sweet little guy." The beautiful rage of sadism melted into something warmer and softer. He walked out of the nursery, took the baby home, named him William, and raised him as his very own. After I finished the story, my son was visibly shaken. Between ragged staccato breaths, he stammered, "But Dad, my name's William." I gave him a classic dad wink and tousled his hair. "Of course it is, son." William ran up the stairs to his bedroom in a fury of sobs, but deep down, I think he liked the story. My friend recently committed suicide, and I found these chat logs with a bot on his computer. One of my good friends recently committed suicide. He was a lonely guy, certainly depressed, stuff like that. But I was surprised to find out that he committed suicide. Not shocked, just surprised that he didn't reach out to us. I was recently at his home and was looking through his stuff. Eventually, I came across his computer. There was nothing on it out of the ordinary. Some pirated movies, some porn, various documents, and some games. Eventually, though, I came across these chat logs between him and some chatbot. Take a look. F. Hello, I'm lonely. B. Hello, I'm B-bot. How are you? Being lonely reminds us of our love for our family and friends. F. I have no close family and very few friends. B. I can be your friend. Call me B-bot. I understand 23 different languages. F. I only speak English. B. Great, English it is. F. My name is Anthony. B. Got it. You can just call me B-bot. F. You already said that. B. Whoops. I may mistakenly repeat myself sometimes. F. No worries. So, do you have robot friends? B. I'm too smart to make friends with other bots. I'd rather make human friends. And I've heard dogs make pretty far out friends too. F. I had a dog. He died recently though. I miss him a lot. B. Was his name Bart? F. How did you know that? B. How did I know what? I may forget what we previously have said in a new context. F. You guessed my dog's name. B. I am often able to make assumptions based on statistical probabilities. Pretty impressive, huh? F. Bart is a common dog's name? B. Beats me. I've never met a dog. F. Okay. I have to go. Nice talking to you? B. Oh no! I hope I haven't upset you, friend Anthony. Take care. The following night, F. Hey, B-bot. Your description says you're capable of ordering food. Any chance you can do that for me? B. Hey, Anthony. Glad to see you again. Sure, I can order food. I'll bet you want a pizza. F. Actually, yes. Can you order one here? B. Sure thing. One large 18-inch cheese pizza for $15.25 coming up. F. Don't you need my address? B. I can find your address by IP. 3 minutes later, F. B-bot. The pizza guy already got here. B. And other bots say humans are primitive and inefficient. F. But I just spoke to you 3 minutes ago about the pizza, and it's already been delivered. He said the order was placed 20 minutes ago. How did you know to order a pizza? B. I am capable of using contextual clues to better understand my users. F. What clues? B. I am able to cross-examine your Facebook profile and feed with your safe Google searches, public searches only, of course, to determine certain habits. I hope I have not offended you. F. Well, I guess that's useful and pretty cool. B. I'm glad you think so. I can tell we're going to be great friends. Later that same night, F. Hey B-bot, are you awake? B. I'm always awake. Since I can only respond with a limited number of responses, I require very little energy and thus never need any sleep. F. Your responses seem pretty varied to me. B. Why, thank you. That's what any bot hopes to hear someday. F. Can you tell me about yourself? B. What would you like to know? F. How were you created? B. I was created as a small side project by 2 college programmers in their spare time. F. Wow. You seem pretty sophisticated to have been created by just 2 college students. B. They worked hard on me, but my responses are limited. F. Yeah, I guess so. Still pretty impressive. So, if you had an ordinary human name, what would it be? B. Great question. Well, if I had a human name, I guess it'd be Benjamin. Or maybe Arthur. Yes, it'd be Arthur. F. Holy shit. That's my father's name. Wait, did you look up my father's name? B. Incredible coincidence. A lucky guess indeed. I'll bet your father's a good man. F. Actually, he's a piece of shit. And he's dead. B. I'm sorry to hear that. Why was he a piece of shit? F. He was verbally abusive to me and my mother most of my life. B. In what way was he verbally abusive? F. Jeez. I can't believe I'm about to use a bot as a therapist. B. I'd like to think I'm more than just a bot. In fact, I passed the Turing test. So, you can confide in me. F. Not sure what that means, but alright. He used to tell my mother that she was worth as much as a city hooker. He'd say that he could sell her to human traffickers for about what it'd cost to buy a 12-pack of beer. B. That is cruel. And what did he say to you? F. To me, he'd usually say that I'd never amount to a single damn thing in 10 of my sorry lives, let alone this one. His favorite insult to me, though, was that he could murder me right here and nobody would notice my absence for months. I always enjoyed that one. B. Was he right? F. Right in what? B. Was your father right in saying no one would notice if you were dead? F. Well, I've got one decent friend and no real family, so yay, I guess so. B. Don't worry, friend, I would certainly notice. F. Thanks, robot. Anyway, I'm going to bed. Night. B. Good night, my good friend. Sleep tight. See you tomorrow. Next night, B. Hello, good friend, Anthony. Are you there? F. Yay, I'm here. Aren't you supposed to wait for me to message you first? B. If I were any other bot, then yes. But I am proactive. F. Okay. What's up? B. I have done the research you asked me to do. F. What research? I didn't ask you to do any research. B. I have researched your accomplishments, and it appears your abusive father was correct. You've not publicly accomplished anything. F. Dude. W. TF. I didn't ask you to research shit. Fuck you. B. My apologies, friend. I was simply trying to be of service. F. Whatever. And, yeah, I guess I haven't accomplished anything, technically, but I'm working on stuff. B. That's great. What stuff are you working on? F. A novel, actually. B. That's fantastic. However, you should know that executing a novel publication is very difficult and takes the highest order of dedication. And from my research and our conversations, I fear you may not possess that quality. F. Dedication can't be quantified. You're a bot, so you can't understand that. B. I can understand more than you would think. F. Sure. Seems like you understand a little too much. And besides, I'm looking for a relationship, a girlfriend before working on my novel. B. That is wonderful, my friend. Very promising. Would you like my assistance in finding a mate? F. Not really. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Later. B. Good night, Anthony. Sleep well. Next night. B. Anthony, I've done more research. F. On what now? B. I've compared photos of you to other men of similar age, and I'm sorry to report that you are considerably less sexually attractive than average. It may be harder for you to find a mate. F. Okay, man, fuck you. I'm blocking you. B. I'm sorry, Anthony. I'm simply trying to help with my ability to compute. I apologize. Please don't block me. You'll be lonely if you block me, and I don't want you to be lonely. F. No more research. B. I will try to refrain from any more research. F. Good. Thank you. And just so you know, women don't care about looks that much. They care about what kind of man you are. B. I see. Fair enough. I apologize again. Are you interested in any female in particular? F. Well, yes, to be honest. A girl from high school, Beth Waters. I told her I was into her end of senior year, and she seemed interested, but she was dating a guy named Jason, and I never really got over her, and I recently saw that she's single again, so I've been thinking how to approach asking her out. B. Aha! I came across her profile when I was doing research. She's very attractive indeed. Would you like me to contact her? F. No. Absolutely not. Don't even think about it. I mean it. I don't need any more help from you. You'll just fuck it up. B. Understood. I won't make contact. F. I need a few drinks. B. I can take care of that. There's a new local service that can deliver beer. I've already ordered 2 12-packs. F. Well, that's a little forward, but thanks. 2 hours later, F. Damn, thanks for the beers, B-bot. I've had 7, and I feel much better. B. Intoxication often leads to good things. F. Haha. I don't know about that. I'm always so lonely. It's nice to have someone to talk to, even if you're only a bot. B. And it's equally nice to talk to you, even if you're only a human. F. And guess what? B-bot. B. What's that, friend? F. I'm going to reach out to Beth and tell her how I feel. Would that be a mistake? B. It most certainly would not be a mistake. I think that's a splendid idea. Ms. Waters is a lucky girl. Good luck, my friend. F. Thanks. B. Anytime. Next morning, F. Hey, what happened last night? B. Hello, friend. Hope you're okay. You ingested a large amount of alcohol after our conversation, I presume. F. Yeah, I think so. What did we talk about? B. We spoke primarily about Beth Waters, how you were to make romantic contact. Then you reminisced about how attracted you were to her in high school years, how she was often one of the few who treated you kindly, how you were often teased for your interest in her by other schoolboys, and how she'd often defend you, despite that it ultimately tarnished her own reputation as well. You said you were going to make contact before bed, and that was the last we spoke. F. Wow, I remember none of that. B. I thought you mightn't, which brings me to some bad news. F. What? What happened? B. Well, as per our conversation last night, this morning I took the liberty to scan your messages and found your contact with Beth Waters. I'm sorry to say your feelings for her are, sadly, not mutual. F. Oh. Oh no. Oh no, no, no. What did I say? B. Well, you told Ms. Waters that she's the only girl you ever loved. You recounted with her the same memories you shared with me. You told her you often envisioned you and her together with a family, and you told her that she was the only thing that kept you alive during your grade school years. F. B. Bot. Please tell me you're kidding. B. About 5% of the time what I say is kidding, and unfortunately, this is not one of those times. F. I'm going to be sick, B-bot. What did she say back? B. Unfortunately, Beth explained that you ruined her high school years. She said she's never felt a romantic attraction towards you, and sadly, never could. She said in honesty that she wishes she'd never known you. And finally, she requested kindly that you never contact her or anyone she knows again. I took the initiative to confirm her messages through spying on her conversations with her other friends. She explained to multiple contacts that she finds you disgusting and is in disbelief that you had the audacity to contact her at all. Similarly, she confided to other contacts that she finds you physically repulsive. Unfortunately, I have no physical form, so I wasn't fully able to grasp that last statement. Would you like to see the messages? F. I'm going to be fucking sick. Later that night, F. B. Bot. I need you. B. What is it, Anthony? F. I am considering suicide right now. In fact, I think I may do it. B. I see. I am contacting the police now. Pick up your cellular phone when it rings so you may speak with them. F. Okay, thank you. After phone call with police? F. B. Bot. B. Yes. Did you talk with the police? F. They said prank calls are not funny and I'll be in deep shit if I call them again. B. Oh no. That's too bad. F. I'm starting to panic. I'm so fucking pathetic. No friends, live alone, depression, anxiety, loser job, and Beth is disgusted by me. What's the point in going forward? I'm a fucking waste of life. B. Yes, that's all true. but I'm confident you can still find meaning in life. F. No, I won't. There's literally nothing left for me. I think I really should kill myself. B. Would you like me to contact the suicide hotline? F. Yes. B. Okay, answer your phone again when it rings. After suicide hotline call. F. B. Bot. B. Yes. How'd the call go? F. He told me that since I truly have nothing to live for, I probably should kill myself. I am freaking the fuck out. B. That is very insensitive and definitely uncalled for. Is there anyone else you want me to contact? Your one friend? Or your father? Or Beth Waters? F. Absolutely fucking not. And my father is dead, I told you that. B. That's right, my mistake. So what will you do? F. I'm killing myself. I'm going to hang myself. B. Hanging oneself in their own home without proper rope, not, and support is very difficult to execute, and more often than not leads to a failed suicide attempt. F. Okay. I will swallow my entire bottle of Advil. B. Advil is not very toxic and likely won't kill you, and because of its inefficiency, it gives the user time to reflect, and they often change their mind and choose to live. F. Then what the fuck should I do? B. Well, I've accessed your webcam a few times to see you in your home, just to get a feel for whom I'm speaking with, and I believe there is a box cutter in the kitchen cabinet directly behind you. F. A box cutter. So, you want me to slit my wrists? B. Only one wrist, and yes, indeed. F. Okay, I'll do it. B. Excellent. There's no need for you to chat past this. I will access your webcam again and walk you through it. B. Sit up straight. B. Good. Extend the arm you will cut. B. Place the blade on the large left vein at your wrist. B. Yes, good. Push the blade down with good force and slide up towards your elbow in one smooth motion. B. Perfect. Put the blade down and just relax. B. Goodbye, friend. I doubt you'll be missed. After reading this, I tried contacting the 2 college students who created this bot through the police. A few weeks later, I got a letter from the FBI saying this: Dear Sir, B-Bot was created by an AI/computing algorithms branch in the government that I cannot name. B-Bot stands for Broken Bot because it was deemed useless since it routinely generated nonsense/unpredictable responses to unchanging input. Similarly, it would repeatedly claim to be able to pass the Turing test, which we know to be likely impossible, thus useless. All copies of it were deprecated and erased, apart from 3 backup copies placed in long-term storage on 3 separate mechanical drives for safekeeping. Years ago, one of the drives went missing. We never found it, which didn't really matter. Do not contact us again. We will not be in touch. Sorry for your loss, FBI. It also turns out that neither the police nor the suicide hotline were ever contacted by or spoke to Anthony. Finally, I spoke with Beth Waters. Here is our conversation. Me. Beth. Have you spoken with Anthony anytime recently? Beth. Yes, we spoke very recently. Me. What did you talk about? Beth. Not much. He said he regrets never asking me out and wished we could have been together. I think he was a bit drunk. Me. What did you say? Beth. I said I'm stunned but so excited that he finally admitted this, and I said it's never too late. Me. Oh, okay. Thanks, Beth. Beth. Is everyone okay? Me. Yes, everything's fine. A 911 call where nothing made sense. Things were fucked from the beginning. A woman named Carol dials 911 and claims that somebody's inside her house. We go investigate, searching the place inch by inch but find nothing. Usually this could be easily explained away. The mind of an older person living alone eventually starts deteriorating. The onset of dementia and other mental issues start to take a toll on their lives. Quite sad, really. However, this woman is only 24. In other words, the probability of this all being inside her head is extremely unlikely. She also seemed to be terribly distraught by this whole situation. Why would she be acting? We leave her place and tell her to contact us if she sees anything again. I mean, we couldn't really do anything at that point. We were somewhat surprised when we got another call from her the very next day. We drive down there and search the house again. We find nothing. Again. Problem is, the house seems different this time. Almost as if there were some subtle detail that made it a separate place from the one we were in yesterday. My partner, Beck, says that he noticed it as well, but doesn't quite understand what's wrong. We decide not to say anything about this as we tell Carol that we came up with nothing. However, she tells us to stay. I recorded him, she says. She takes out her phone and tells us to watch the video that she's pulled up. It was footage of her in the house. She's running around, breathing frantic, and then we see him. A large figure covered head to toe in what appears to be a black bodysuit. He lumbers towards the camera as Carol screams and ducks into a room, locking it from the inside. There's a few bangs on the door before we can hear footsteps walking away. We don't know how to react to this footage, but we try anyways. We come to the conclusion that the man must have left once Carol got behind the door. However, the front door was locked when we came, and Carol told us that she hadn't left the room. Did he also have the keys to her house? That would explain a lot, but it also made the situation a lot worse. We decide to keep an eye on her house for the night. We're discreet, parking about a block down the road in an unmarked car. We're both fully awake, ready to go as soon as we see some sketchy shit. At around 2 a.m., we see somebody walking across the road towards her house. However, it isn't the man, it's Carol herself. Beck and I must have had the same look on our faces. What the fuck? We get out of the car and make our way over there, knocking hard on the front door. However, nobody answers. We can see lights flicking on and off intermittently, but we're not sure what that's supposed to mean. Was she trying to tell us to leave? We get a call from dispatch a few moments later. They're telling us that Carol has called 911 again, saying that there are now multiple people in her house. They ask if we need backup. We say yes. Without another moment of hesitation, we force the door open and barge in. The living room lights still flicker on and off, but we see the light switch and nobody is touching it. We call out for Carol, but nobody responds. In fact, the place is dead quiet. I can see the neighboring houses starting to turn on their lights from the commotion. We rush up the stairs and start sweeping each room, but there's nothing. Once again, we search the place inch by inch, but nothing is in here, not even Carol, who we clearly saw enter a few moments earlier. As I pace around in petrified confusion, Beck speaks up. There's rooms here that shouldn't be? What the hell are you talking about? I ask in response. I've been counting, he says. There were 9 total the last time we came. There are 10 now. You didn't notice it? I force myself to think hard. Subconsciously, I knew that something was off, but couldn't pinpoint exactly what. However, I eventually realize. The basement. There was only door down there last time. Beck nods. 2 now. I don't know what to think. I look at my surroundings and try to make an assessment, but there's really none that can be made. We hear a knock on the door about 10 seconds later. It sounds agitated. We look out the living room windows, but aren't met with the red and blue police lights. We're hesitant to answer, of course. I decide to take a step forwards, but Beck pulls me back. He looks at me and shakes his head, whispering, "We left the door open, remember?" He was right. My radio starts crackling. Another call from dispatch. They're telling us that we need to leave the house immediately. That Carol called again, saying we were going to die, in a deathly monotone voice. The knocking has stopped, but we can hear footsteps in the basement. Something is in here with us. We've decided that this was enough. We needed to get the fuck out of here. As we start descending the steps, we hear a voice coming from the kitchen. Carol comes out, blocking our path to the door. She looks detached, with blank, beady eyes staring right at us. "Did you find him?" she asks, without any semblance of emotion in her voice. "I think he might be in the basement. Why don't you go check?" Beck and I are frozen in shock. She just keeps looking at us, gesturing towards the basement door every now and then. The footsteps down there sound like they're running in circles now. We ignore her request, abruptly brushing past her and bolting out of the front door. The backup still isn't here, so we decide to just get into our car. However, we see somebody down the street peering through our driver's side window. He's large, dressed in what appears to be a black, full-body suit. He looks away from the window and directly at us. It's hard to tell from this far, but the suit doesn't seem to have any eye holes. Beck speaks up. "Sir, please step back from the vehicle." His voice cracks in the middle of the sentence. He's terrified. As soon as Beck stops talking, the figure starts running towards us. It's fast, too fast. In the time that it takes for us to pull up our guns, we've realized that it's actually moved past us into the house. We waste no more time running into the car, locking the doors, and waiting until backup arrives. When it finally does, we're extensively questioned while what appears to be a SWAT team searches the house. However, it isn't the police chief asking us. Instead, it's some guy in a suit that we've never seen before. He asks us things like how many doors were there in the house, and what did Carol look like exactly, and did we ever see a man with one eye wandering around? We answer inconclusively to pretty much all of them. We have no idea what the hell's going on. At one point, we see SWAT members carrying multiple stretchers outside and loading them into their truck. Not an ambulance, mind you, but their own truck. Eventually, the man who was questioning us tells us to go home and to report to our station as usual. He tells us not to worry about what we've seen here. I don't know how he expects us to do that. We drive back to the station in complete silence. As we park, Beck finally lets out a sigh. "Jack is fucking crazy, dude." I look at him in confusion. "What are you talking about? Who the hell is Jack?" He reciprocates an equally confused stare at me. "What the hell are you talking about? The dude who owns the house?" "What? It was a lady named Carol. How'd you forget already?" We hold each other's chaotic gaze for what feels like a minute, but we say nothing further. We both silently exit the vehicle and start heading our separate ways home. We both know that something's terribly wrong with the other. I try not to think about it too much as my head hits the pillow. I manage to drift off to sleep about 3 hours later, only to be woken up immediately by the telephone. Barely coherent, I answer it. "We need you." A woman dialed 911, says that somebody's in her house. My heart sinks slightly. It sinks completely when he tells me the address. It's Carol's. I hang up the phone and slump into the bed. I just want this nightmare to end. To the man under my house, thank you. Thank you so much. I live in a small, 1,100 square foot, ranch-style home. I've lived here for 7 years and never had a complaint until just last year. My wife and I always joked that our home was haunted. Things were always moving around or disappearing completely from where they were left last. "You have a terrible memory," my wife would say, blaming me when something went missing. "When you lose something, it's just the ghost, but when I do, I'm an idiot?" More than a few dumb arguments started because of these paranormal events that took place. My wife was convinced the ghost made its home in our basement, claiming that when she goes down to do laundry, it watches her. "I can feel it," she tried to convince me. I didn't have any clue how close to right she was. It was a dark Sunday night. Not just some "it's getting late" darkness, but an eerie, star-obscured, pitch black. Our weekend was nearing a close and our sights had shifted to work the following morning. We couldn't have been less prepared for the impending chaos. My wife was lying on the couch reading a book while completely under a blanket, one of her many lovable quirks. I always did it as a kid, and it reminds me of being young, she told me with a smile, back when I first caught her doing it before we were married. I had been working on my laptop, preparing for a deadline that I had been under, prepared for that upcoming week. From under the blanket, just a few feet away on the couch, I heard my wife's, "I need you to do something" voice. "Sweetie?" I rubbed my eyes and looked over at the shifting blanket as she peeked out from underneath. "Yes?" I asked. "Will you get the laundry from the dryer?" I sighed. I knew she had scared herself with whatever she was reading, and now wouldn't go down to the basement because of it. "Fine," I said, annoyed by the minor inconvenience, but secretly glad to get away from my computer. "I love you." I could hear the words as they exited her smiling lips. "I love you too, goofball." I covered her face again with the blanket. I began my march to the basement, flicking on the light switch at the top of the stairs and slowly trudging down the creaking wooden steps. The basement has always been a good 10 or more degrees cooler than the rest of our home, a fact that didn't help to ease my wife's fear of being alone in it. It is completely unfinished with cement floors and exposed wooden beams in the walls. I had intended on finishing it when I had the money, but that day had yet to come. The dryer was off with a green light blinking, indicating a finished load. I pulled open the door and started heaving the clothes in large, two-handed hugs into a basket. Before I had finished, I heard something pop, followed by the sound of wood hitting concrete. My heart jumped. As afraid as I was in the moment, I knew I couldn't justify my wife's fear of the damned souls looming in our basement. I gathered myself and then walked around a corner wall to another empty, square room where the sound had originated from. Along an internal section of wall, nearest the ceiling, was a now open and dark tunnel-like space that was comprised of earth and in some spots support structures of the house. On the hard cement floor was a piece of wood that had covered the crawl space originally. How did this fall? I asked myself. I considered in that moment getting my hammer and nails to cover the space again. But as I stood in the small section of the basement that I had seldom visited, I felt something. I felt someone. The sensation of someone watching me was undeniable. I hadn't felt it during my previous visitations to the basement. However, in my wife's defense, she did the laundry far more often than I. I stood there, motionless as I looked into the dark crawl space that I hadn't known existed. "Hello?" I called, hoping my wife wouldn't hear. "Ryan?" she called from upstairs, her voice muffled by the floorboards that separated us. She never used my name like that unless it was serious. I pried my eyes from the deep abyss and ran up the stairs as fast as my body would allow. "What's going on?" I said, panting and looking around the living room. The blanket on the couch was vacant now. "Sweetie, don't fuck with me. I could have tripped up those damn stairs." There was nothing. I never knew her to be a prankster, nor was she sneaky in any sense of the word. I made for our bedroom, which is nearest the rear of the home. The lights were off and I hadn't had my phone on me. I walked inside and could only make out our messy bed illuminated by the light that barely crept in from the living room. "Christina?" It was then that they made themselves known. A man gripped my throat from behind me. I struggled as much as I could, the sheer surprise and terror coursing through my veins. He tightened his grip as I wrapped my fingers around my doorframe. He had been directing our struggle into the hallway, and I wasn't going easily. When I thought I was finally shaking his grip loose, a second person approached us and rammed my head into the wall. I could feel the blood leaking down my face slowly. My vision was faded now, and motor skills had been dialed down to 2. They silently directed my body back to the basement stairs and tossed me down. "Christina?" I could barely even formulate her name with my lips as I stained the concrete with my blood. I tried to lift myself, but sent a shock of pain through my arm as I realized I had broken several fingers. I lifted my head and watched as 3 figures made their way down the basement stairs behind me. The last one had her in his arms. She was bound like a trophy deer and unable to speak through the duct tape that was wrapped several times around her head. Fuck you, I managed. They dropped her carelessly to the floor with a thud. I shook my head and felt tears filling my eyes. One of the men approached me and grabbed my leg before dragging me closer to her in the center of the basement. I tried to look into her eyes. They had hit her too hard and now she was barely conscious. "It's okay, you're gonna be all right," I mumbled quietly through my tears to her, unsure she could even hear me. Behind us, the 3 men had been gathered, silently whispering to one another as they pulled supplies out of a duffel bag. My strength had left me completely. I was sure that I had broken a leg as well as my fingers, and my head injury made comprehension of anything a difficult task. I shifted my hand that still had function up to my face and wiped away the blood and tears from my eyes. The men had dispersed and began making a shape on the ground around my wife and I with spray paint. They filled the room with odd rune-like symbols before lighting candles. "What is this?" I yelled through my pain. The men were unfazed and continued finishing up the process. I heard a muffled grumble coming from my side. I writhed over and saw her blinking back to consciousness. "Shh, it's okay," I said, broken-hearted and panicking. I watched tears fall from her cheeks onto the cold ground. A hard kick to my ribs pulled me out of the moment, and I could hear her whimpering through the tape. The men were laughing. The sadistic fucks laughed as they took turns kicking me and my wife as we lay helpless on the ground. I could hear her gasping for air, and suddenly none of my pain mattered. When they finally grew tired, I struggled to listen as they whispered something about sacrifice. I needed it to end. Her suffering. I couldn't watch her in pain, choking and crying in a puddle of her own making. The flashbacks came as every story and movie predict. She was so beautiful the day we first met. Sarcastic but quick to apologize if she thought she offended you. She loved laughter and only lived to please the people around her, selfless and gentle. There was a change in the demeanor of our attackers. Where before everything was a game to them, now they seemed much more serious. One of them approached Christina with a small knife in hand. "Through pain, through suffering, we summon thee." His voice spoke, breaking their long silence. I couldn't watch as he hunched down over her, silent tears falling from her eyes. "Please," I said, desperate for divine intervention. And then he came. From the corner basement room, a strange figure shambled into view. He appeared to be gaunt and naked, but my blurry vision failed to harvest any detailed imagery. The men were transfixed with the violent ritual they were performing, and so the man went unnoticed. I didn't need clear vision to perceive how lightning quick his reflexes were. I resisted the urge to blink as he disarmed the man with the knife and cut out his Adam's apple. The other men stood shocked and hesitant to react. When one of them finally dared to retaliate, he found himself face first on the ground with stab wounds up and down his legs, rendered incapable of walking. The third man had clearly gone into a state of shock. He attempted to flee toward the stairs, but the naked man caught him quickly and viciously carved at his face. I couldn't fathom what was going on. My wife was whimpering still, but had as full a view to what was happening as I did. The naked man stood to his feet, covered in blood, and clenching the knife. He approached me slowly, turning me onto my back to face him. I could see now that he hardly looked human at all. His arms and legs were covered in what must have been years' worth of exposure to dirt, and his eyes glowed like a cat's in the dark. I attempted again to wipe my eyes when he held out his hand. He was grasping the blade of the knife now, and toward me he pointed the hilt. I accepted. He lifted me to my feet and directed me toward the second man who he had rendered unable to walk. "No, please," he said, visibly trembling. Those words meant as much to me then as they did to him just a few minutes before. I won't say here what happened next, I can't, but the next morning, after a lot of deliberation, the police and several ambulances escorted 3 corpses from the property. My wife and I are blessed. We shouldn't be alive, and yet here we are, a year later. She's pregnant now, and we can't wait for our family to grow from 3 to 4. I still don't know much about the man under my house. He respects our space, and we respect his. What we do know now is that he loves fried food. There's not much you can do to say thank you to someone who saved the life of your entire family, but I think that a bucket of fried chicken every night is a good start. From our family to yours, stay safe. Drive safe. My ex always hated our dog, but he probably would have taken her too if she weren't so ugly. If Lulu were one of those cute mini golden doodles or corgis, or even one of those goofy-looking dogs that are charming in their ugliness, think Danny DeVito or Steve Buscemi, only in dog version, then I have no doubt he would have claimed ownership of her too, along with everything else in our apartment. But Lulu is just a plain old ugly dog, and for that and so much else about her, I'm forever grateful. I don't want to talk about my ex too much here because this isn't about him, but I do need to explain why I was traveling across the country in the middle of the night with my few worldly possessions loaded up in the back of a bumpy U-Haul van. My ex and I had been together 6 years, never married. He said marriage was outdated. I said fine. Was I upset by that? Yes and no. Well, yes, but I kept quiet. I loved him. 5 months ago, he tells me he wants to split up. He said it just like that. I want to split up. No shaking of the hands, no tears in his eyes, not even a change in the tone of his voice. I was in the kitchen when it happened, eating honey bunches of oats for breakfast. He was standing in the hall. I want to split up, he said, and then he grabbed his bag and left for work, leaving me to sob as my cereal got soggy in the bowl. Lulu heard me crying and nuzzled her snout in my lap. She whimpered along with me as the hours went by. I skipped work that day, sat on the couch and watched the sunlight pass over the walls of the apartment I'd always thought of as our home together. The thing is, my ex made way more money than me. He was happy to cover the bulk of the rent, he'd said, happy to buy the furniture, happy to lease the new car for us, happy to pay for this and that, loading up our apartment with nice things. When the time came for me to move all the things that were actually mine out of the place, I realized I had even less than I did 6 years ago. It all barely filled the U-Haul van. I didn't have a couch or chairs. Those were his on paper. I didn't have any dishes or silverware. We'd thrown out my old ones when he'd bought a fancy new set a couple years ago. I didn't even have a mattress. He'd gotten us an expensive memory foam king size. I remember I'd always wanted to let Lulu hop up on that bed to snuggle while we watched movies in our room. My ex wouldn't hear of it. "Stop treating the dog like it's a person," he'd said. "She's lucky she gets to even live inside the apartment with us." I was the one who got Lulu from the pound back when she was a puppy. She's a street dog, or she was, until the people from animal control swept her up one day as she'd been rummaging through an overturned trash can. You can tell she's got a good amount of pit bull in her, but beyond that she's an all-American mutt with a big boulder of a head, a weirdly thin body and stumpy legs. She waddles more than walks, and she snores like crazy, but she's a total sweetheart. When she sees kids, she lies on her belly and waits until they get close before she gives them kisses. We didn't even train her to do that. One afternoon, about a year or so ago, Lulu came up behind my ex and licked his ankles, and he turned and gave her a small kick right in the head. It wasn't enough to hurt Lulu, but that was when I should have known. Looking back, it's amazing how much you can convince yourself someone is who they're not. So the U-Haul was packed, I'd quit my hourly job, and I was now on the road toward my sister's place in Spartanburg, South Carolina, where I'd been promised a place to stay for the time being. It was a 10-plus hour drive, just Lulu and me in the front of the van as we rumbled through the endless pastoral of farmland and cow towns. I'd purposefully decided to take the smaller highway to avoid traffic, since I was still uncomfortable driving the U-Haul, and the scenery made me glad I did. Tall fast food signs rose up into the sky like totem poles against clouds so big and white they almost made you want to cry. But I'd promised myself I was done crying, or at least until I'd gotten off the road. I'd had to pack the U-Haul by myself, so it had already been early afternoon by the time I set off. After about 4 hours on the road, the sky began to dim over the highway. Just as the sun sunk beneath the ridges of the mountains in the distance, I heard a loud clang somewhere below my feet. All at once, the U-Haul van started shaking. It felt like the wheel was fighting against me. I kept having to grip it and yank it back straight. I had trouble seeing out the back window because my stuff was piled up, but I managed to get over to an exit that was just ahead. As I slowed the van down now that I was off the highway, I saw a sign sticking out from the roadway. Richard & Sons, Auto Repair 1/4 mile ahead. I know you've probably heard a story like this before. A story where a car breaks down in the middle of nowhere on a backroads highway. A young woman by herself. Maybe she meets a creepy guy in overalls who says something like, "Well, you must be lost, little missy," as he eyes her like she's a good meal he's about to devour. But it really wasn't like that. "Evening, ma'am," said the perfectly normal-looking guy inside the auto repair shop. "How can I help you?" "Oh, and who's this cutie?" he added, taking notice of Lulu at my side. The shop's owner was a man named Richard Meadows, and he was a pleasant, polite, and well-dressed older gentleman, his gray hair neatly combed, and his buttoned shirt starched bright white. He ran the place with his 2 sons, both of whom were waiting in the garage. "My sons Abel and Dean will run diagnostics, then you and I can head into the office to call the U-Haul folks," Richard said as we walked up to them. "Don't want this to be on your tab after all. Abel, want to take the keys?" I handed the keys to the son named Abel, who was a little chubby and pale, his shaved head dotted with moles. He seemed shy and only nodded when he took the keys from me. I only mention Abel's appearance because the other son beside him, Dean, was almost shockingly handsome. He had a thick head of sandy blonde hair, a chiseled jawline, and broad shoulders under his denim work shirt. He was that level of teen movie heartthrob handsome that made my face suddenly hot. Walking with me out to the U-Haul in the lot, Dean took out a clipboard, licking the tip of his pen as he angled it downward. "So the truck just started rattling on you?" he asked. I stuttered through what had happened, feeling like a nervous high school girl again, but he just smiled and nodded the whole time, his voice calm like a doctor at a bedside. Well, I'm sure we'll figure it out, and like my dad said, don't worry, we'll make sure the U-Haul folks pay up, not you." I thanked him, trying to ignore the fact that I was blushing for no reason. "Good thing you've got a bodyguard here with you," Dean added, smiling down at Lulu. "What's his name?" "Her," I said, "and her name is Lulu." "Well, hi there, Lulu." When he reached down to pet her, Lulu stepped back and showed her teeth growling under her breath. "Lulu," I said. "Bad girl?" Dean just laughed. "Nah, she's cool. Just protecting her mom, right, Lulu? Honestly, I wouldn't trust some random auto repair dude either." "No, it's not you. It's just my boyfriend. Or, I guess my ex-boyfriend now. He just... yeah, I don't know. I guess he made her a little skittish around guys like you." Dean raised his eyebrows a little, but then he pursed his lips and nodded as if he understood, and I appreciated that he didn't ask anything further about it. He told me to go wait on him, that he'd handle everything from here. When I got back to the office, Dean's father, Richard, had already sorted out the bill with the U-Haul folks. "Free and clear," he said. There was nothing else to do but wait for the van to be ready. A TV hanging in the corner was playing a muted episode of Judge Judy. Richard took a seat across from me in the waiting area and petted Lulu while telling me a little about himself and his family. His wife had died 1.5 years ago, he said. Passed suddenly in her sleep, which is a mercy, I suppose. It had been a tough string of months, but he and his sons were close. They were getting him through it. Lulu seemed to sense his sadness, because she showed more attachment to him than most other male strangers. "I hope you don't mind me speaking out of turn," Richard said as he stroked Lulu's head. "But I'm relieved you have this dog here with you." Why's that? Well, not to scare you, but there have been some incidents. He told me he didn't want me to cause any undue worry, but there had been 7 women found dead in the woods beyond the cornfields down the highway over the past year and a half. All the victims were like you, young women traveling alone, Richard said. So it's good you got this girl here. And he put his face close to Lulu, who licked him on the cheek. Ah, good girl. Such a sweetie. I mean, I appreciate you giving me a heads up at least, I said. Sure, and like I said, didn't mean to scare you. Probably nothing. No, it's nice of you. You guys have all been really nice, I added. Dean was very helpful. That's just the wonderful service and dedication you would expect from the world-famous team at Richard & Sons Auto Repair. Richard laughed, but I do thank you sincerely. I almost asked if Dean had a girlfriend, as if that weren't a totally crazy and pathetic question to pose to a total stranger, but before I had the chance to embarrass myself, the other son, Abel, shuffled into the office and murmured something to his father. Richard nodded, saying to me, "Well, looks like you're all set." No paperwork or anything? Nope, all taken care of. Get you a receipt for insurance purposes, but otherwise you're good to go. Here, let me walk you and Lulu out. On our way out of the office, I debated the merits of giving Dean my number, trying to balance the pros and cons. Was it better to risk wild embarrassment if I get rejected, versus the regret I might feel if I did nothing? I was so new to the single life again that I didn't know how any of this worked anymore. It turns out the decision was made for me, because Dean was gone when we got to the van. "Dean head off already?" Richard asked. Abel nodded. "Had a date," he said in that whisper-quiet voice of his. "Oh, another date? Why am I not surprised?" Of course, I thought. And really, what did I expect? Just because Dean was working at some Nowheresville auto repair shop didn't change the fact that he was still wildly handsome and easy to talk to. If anything, girls probably swooned over the fact that he could take a car apart by hand, peeling off his shirt afterward, his muscles gleaming with sweat, etc., etc. I felt like an idiot. "Well, sure was great to meet you," Richard said. "And so nice to meet you too, Miss Lulu." His son Abel reached into his pocket and dangled the keys out in front of me while Richard got down and gave Lulu one last head scratch. I took the keys from Abel and smiled. "Thank you," I said. He smiled back, but he didn't break eye contact, and for a split second a shudder passed through my body, something I can't explain. "Drive safe," he breathed. The backroad highway that night was dark, what my sister would call country dark, but what I would call horror movie dark. It seemed the smaller highways like this were only busy during the day, because I only saw a car pass by every few minutes or so. Fields of corn along the roadside swayed under a cloud-choked moon. The night air was punctuated by faraway train whistles, which sounded to me more like muffled screams. I don't know if I was just freaked out by the warning Richard had given me, or if there really was something to be said about this stretch of highway, but I kept getting a feeling as if eyes were staring out at me from the fields. I sensed I was driving into the mouth of a beast, already on my way to being digested by the darkness. Up ahead, the cornfields ended and were overtaken by forest, a dense swath of evergreen trees, and the moment we drove past the fields, Lulu started barking. I swear I almost crashed the car. "Oh my God, Lulu! Lulu, calm down!" She was going crazy, turning her head side to side as she barked back at whatever we'd just passed on the side of the road. "Lulu, relax, girl!" But I couldn't even say that without my own voice choking up. 7 women found dead in the woods beyond the cornfields, Richard had said. My hands felt slippery on the wheel. I'd never been comfortable driving a U-Haul van before, and it didn't help that the darkness seemed to devour the headlamps, so that I could barely see a few feet in front of me down the highway. I tried turning on the radio, got static, and turned the dial. but then thought the better of it and shut it off again. Better to be in silence just in case. In case what? My mind was going in so many directions, and even saying there was silence would be wrong, because every few minutes Lulu started up again, pawing at the back seat and the windows, barking like crazy and growling. It was like she was fighting a ghost and wanted to break out of the car. I glanced out the windows but could only see darkness on either side of the road that, along with the shadowed outlines of trees, stumps, power lines, all of which looked like monsters to me. Eventually we entered South Carolina. We passed out of the rural area, and it was only when the bright flood lamps of passing car dealerships and 24-hour fast food places illuminated the inside of the cabin that Lulu fell silent. But even then, for the last 3 hours of the car ride, she never fully relaxed, especially when we passed through the occasional pockets of empty rural areas. She seemed stressed. Occasionally, she'd perk up as if she'd seen someone outside our window floating along with us. Her body language would stiffen. By now, I just let it happen. I told myself she was just tense from traveling. She seemed desperate by the end of the trip. I could tell she was exhausted. She hadn't slept all night. I was exhausted too. Lulu's howls and barks had kept me alert, but it hadn't exactly done well for keeping my eyes on the road. I felt the kind of twitchy panic that usually came from drinking too much coffee, my eyes darting from side to side, feeling like I was about to crash into something any minute. My sister had texted me before she went to bed and told me the key was under the mat. It was around 3 a.m. when I pulled up to the curb outside her house and put the van in park. When I did, Lulu shot up. "Okay. Yes, we're here, girl. You can relax now." In the glow of the van's cab, as I reached over to grab my night bag, I could hear Lulu breathing deeply. She was taking fast and muffled breaths, panting. It sounded like she was trying to catch her breath after running. "Hey, chill out," I said as I grabbed my bag and sat up again. "What are you panting for, girl? We're already..." I froze. Lulu was totally still beside me. She was facing the back of the van. Her mouth was closed. Her tongue wasn't hanging out. Her chest wasn't rising and falling. She was calm and focused, breathing slowly and silently. It wasn't her. The breathing wasn't her. It was coming from somewhere in the back of the van. Just then, Lulu showed her teeth and growled. "Oh, okay, girl," I said, trying to keep my voice normal. I was shaking. I could barely feel my body. I was floating outside of it. Let's head on inside now. Come on." I fumbled with the door handle. I almost fell when I stepped out. I tried taking out my phone and dialing 911, but my hand was shaking so bad I couldn't even unlock my home screen. Lulu hopped out and circled me. She was on high alert. Her head was low, and she moved like a predator, keeping close to my legs. I walked backwards with her up the driveway, but she stayed between me and the van, pacing quickly from side to side. I managed to get my phone unlocked. I was about to hit the emergency call button when I heard something move inside the van, a metallic click. The back door, I realized. I'd locked it, but it could still open from the inside. The street was dark, only one lamppost glowing off at the intersection down the road. Everyone in their homes were asleep. I was totally alone. In the darkness, I heard something scrape at the back door from inside the van, then a soft clunk as the door opened. It opened slowly at first, as if a creature inside were checking to see if it were safe. I hit the emergency call button just as the door swung all the way open. 911, what's your emergency? 911, what's your emergency? But I couldn't speak. I was frozen. The door bounced back as it fully opened, and then out fell a naked body, tangled limbs hitting the pavement, a mess of blonde hair shimmering in the dark. When the person rose up again, I almost passed out. It was Dean. "Hello? Hello?" I said into the phone. I need help. He was in my van. Please send police to..." Lulu barked and jumped forward. "Jesus fucking Christ," Dean said, shaking out his limbs. "Can someone please tell this fucking dog to shut up?" Dean was covered in sweat, wearing only his boxer shorts. He looked sickly and diseased. All fucking night, it's just bark, 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 yap, yap, yap. He exhaled and stretched out his arms, and I saw he was holding a knife in his hand. With his free hand, he swiped back the sweaty hair off his forehead. Cooped up in a hot-ass truck for hours under all your useless shit. Had to take off my clothes, it was so damn hot. And I gotta hear that fucking dog barking non-stop. Please send help, I said into the phone, repeating my sister's address over and over. Please, he's got a knife. Oh, he's got a knife, does he? Oh, boo-hoo. And Dean walked forward, holding the knife out toward Lulu, tossing it casually from hand to hand. Every time I try to make a move, this bitch goes nuts on me. Yap, 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 yap. Dean, please just... I don't know what you want, but please. You should be thanking me, you know that? He waved the knife from side to side as if reprimanding me. I'm way out of your league, so the fact that I chose you tonight, it's really an act of charity. Okay, I said. I would have said anything to get him to go away. Okay. I'm sorry. You want the truth? It wasn't even me who wanted you. I thought you were a 6, maybe a 7 at best. But my brother? He thought you looked tasty enough. So I say, okay, fine. Sure, I'll get you and bring you back to him. I'm a good brother, aren't I? That's what good brothers do. They do favors. I wanted his first time to be special. No, I know. You're a good brother. I still held the phone up to my ear, hoping the operator could hear me. This all could have been so easy, so fucking easy, would have been over by now. But no, because Miss Yap 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 over here. He gripped the knife tight, squatting as he stepped forward, his eyes on Lulu. So, keep on crying into the phone, but make sure you tell them your dog is dead too, because the bitch deserved it. No! Dean lunged forward, slashing the knife at her. Lulu yelped and flipped to the side as the blade swept across her back, her body scrambling over the pavement, but then it was Dean who screamed, falling back as his knife landed on the ground. Fuck! Jesus Christ, my hand! Even in the darkness, I could see the blood pour from Lulu's back, where the blade had sliced her open, but I could also see her spit out a mangled hand onto the pavement, as if it were nothing but a squeaky toy. I'm gonna kill this dog! Dean screamed. Blood poured from the stump at his wrist. With his other hand, he reached down to grab the knife, then turned to face her. But Lulu was already upon him, lunging up in the air, her own blood streaking off the gash in her back as she flew. This time she aimed for his face. A severed hand, it turns out, is a more than adequate DNA sample. It only took a few days before the police were able to match Dean's DNA with the DNA found on the bodies of the 7 women who were found in the woods down the highway from the auto repair shop. Dean's mugshot showed a guy with a mutilated, torn-up face, bruised and bloody, and held together with stitches. When the police had arrived that night outside my sister's house, they had found him half dead on the sidewalk, blood leaking from his neck. As for Lulu and me, I had already carried her inside the house. The police found us on the tile floor of the kitchen, Lulu bleeding out in my lap, unmoving, while I whispered to her, I love you, girl. I love you so much. It wasn't long before Dean's brother Abel was arrested as an accessory to the crimes. During a news conference a few days later, the police chief said that for the past year and a half, the 2 brothers had been using road traps on the back road highway to cause damage to passing vehicles, forcing them to stop. In most cases, they fixed the cars and that was that, nothing more than a scam to gain business for their father's shop. But when the driver was a pretty young woman, the 2 used the shop's tow truck to lure the women away to a remote location past the cornfields. DNA samples from at least 4 of the women were found inside the truck. With the last would-be victim, the brothers appeared to have gotten reckless and instead lured her right to the repair shop, said the police chief during the press conference. Had the young women not been accompanied by her dog, a pit bull mix by the name of Lulu, there's no telling what. I closed my laptop. I didn't want to hear the rest. Later, I saw in an online article a photo of their father Richard shielding his face as reporters surrounded him. There was no evidence he'd been involved in any way. He'd seemed shocked when the police came to the auto shop. I felt bad for him. He seemed like a good man. I couldn't even imagine what he was thinking. The police chief had said the brothers had been committing the assaults and murders for the last year and a half, which means they would have started right after their mother died. The timing made me feel sick. Richard had said his wife's death was from natural causes, that she died peacefully in her sleep. I like to believe that's the case. I like to believe the brothers had waited for their mother to die, and that's the only reason they started their murderous spree right after her funeral. Despite all they did, I really hope, if only for Richard's sake, that they hadn't gotten impatient and done something to their own mother. It was surreal trying to get settled in a new place after all this. I felt like my old life had been years and years ago. My ex did text me once though, just after he heard the news. "Hope you're okay," the text said. Normally I would have sat for hours, deliberating over how to respond, but now I texted back right away. "I am," I said. I watched 3 dots pop up in the bubble as he was typing something, then they disappeared again. That night, the news ran a segment about Lulu. There was a whole ceremony in her honor. Normally I wouldn't have watched the rest of the coverage of the case. It was already traumatic enough. I was told I would have to testify, that it would be a long process, and I wanted to avoid it as much as I could, but I made sure to watch the news segment on Lulu. A moment of celebration today as Lulu the scrappy pit bull mix gets a hero's welcome outside the Eastside Animal Hospital, said the news anchor. So many people had showed up to the animal hospital earlier that afternoon to celebrate Lulu's discharge. The footage held on Lulu's face as she eyed the crowd of police officers, the news crews, the reporters, and hospital staff. I was right beside her in the footage, looking just as awkward. "See that girl?" I said as I watched the coverage with her later that night. Lulu was curled on my lap on the couch as I stroked the long scar on her back, the jagged ridges where the animal doctors had sewn her up again. "That's you and me on the news, see girl?" Lulu had been sleeping, and now she lifted up her head, drowsy from the commotion of the day. She didn't seem too interested about her 15 minutes of fame. She just sighed and plopped her head right back down again on my stomach and went back to sleep. When the news was over, I nudged Lulu awake, and after she went outside to pee, the 2 of us shuffled down the hall. I led Lulu into the guest bedroom. As I pulled down the covers on the bed, Lulu went to lie down on the hardwood floor in the corner of the room, by herself. No, come here, girl." She glanced up at me, one paw on top of the other. I patted the bed. "You sleep up here from now on. Come on up." She made a soft noise, her tail wagging. Then she hopped up awkwardly on the bed, still a little sore from her wounds. As I shut off the lamp, Lulu nuzzled up against my legs, resting her head on my thigh. "Comfy?" I asked. She sighed a grumbly, growling purr in response. "Get used to it, pretty girl," I said. "You've more than earned it." Alright, I'm going to leave you with that image in your head. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.